To the world, Adrian was just a bloated, pampered prince, rotting away in a pathetic and useless body. But a brush with death flipped the switch. He ditched the temper tantrums to forge himself anew. Despite a body that rejected mana, Adrian grinded anyway, manually crafting a mana heart through pure grit. He pushed until muscles tore and swung his blade until his palms bled, while his uncle, Vale, mocked him. Vale treated him like absolute trash, but Adrian didn't flinch. When pushed too far, Adrian dropped a massive bet. In 6 months, he'd prove his worth or die trying. From that second, his entire reality shifted. It became a cycle of brutal training and endless agony. Day by day, he sharpened his soul into a weapon. Slowly, the worthless prince everyone laughed at began to vanish. Finally, the day of the showdown arrived. Adrian stood before Vale, who arrogantly claimed he'd only need a single ring to crush the boy. The duel ignited. Initially, Vale danced around Adrian's strikes, waiting for the prince to show his hand. That's when Adrian sparked a martial spirit through his mana heart, forcing the fight into a higher gear. By channeling raw dragon-slaying energy into his fragile frame, his entire aura suddenly turned lethal. His power surged violently. His attacks became so ferocious that even a master like Vale began to struggle. Vale had vowed to use one ring, but Adrian's final strike was so terrifying, Vale's instincts took over. He unleashed all 4 rings just to survive the impact. Even then, Vale's own sword snapped in half. Adrian was thrown back by the shockwave, but the damage was done. Vale had broken his own rule. Adrian had officially forced a quad-chain knight to go all out. By the bet's terms, Vale lost. Adrian was the victor. But here's the twist. This wasn't the real prince. Our story begins with the MC. He was reincarnated as a literal legendary sword, forced to serve master after master throughout the ages. He turned nobodies into legends. During this journey, he met a boy he'd eventually call his true comrade, a peasant from a nameless village named Leonberg. While Leonberg wielded him, they became an unstoppable duo. They toured the lands together, pulling off miracles that no mortal should achieve in 1,000 lifetimes. Their journey led them to a nightmare, the Grey Dragon. In the heat of battle, Leonberg nearly broke, but with the sword in hand, he stood tall. He flashed a confident smirk, radiating an overwhelming aura. Dashing toward the beast, Leonberg vaulted into the air and delivered a series of fatal, soul-cutting slashes. The dragon fell. Leonberg became a king and a myth, founding a legacy that would last for generations. The sword, Gruhorn, was passed down through the bloodline. Eventually, the blade entered a long, deep slumber. Suddenly, he was shaken awake by a sweaty, obnoxious prince who was manhandling his legendary hilt. The guy was claiming ownership of the blade. This arrogant, out-of-shape fatso was supposedly the new prince. He ignored the guard's warnings that only the king could touch Gruhorn, acting like a total brat. Gruhorn couldn't believe his eyes. The dude swinging him around looked more like a rejected hog than royalty. Gruhorn used his authority to scan the guy's stats. That's when he realized this was Adrian Leonberg. His stats were straight garbage. However, the name Leonberg confirmed he was a direct descendant of the saint. Gruhorn was genuinely horrified that a legendary sword saint's bloodline could produce someone this pathetic. Adrian started yapping about how the nobles would finally kneel once he mastered the great sword's power. Screaming like a girl, Adrian begged Gruhorn for strength, but Gruhorn wasn't having any of it. He refused to grant power to such a loser, yet the prince kept swinging him like a toy. The guards begged him to stop, reminding the prince that drawing a blade in the palace was forbidden. This only fueled Adrian's rage as he chased the guards, threatening to execute them on the spot. While swinging the sword like a total clown, his balance failed and the gods of gravity betrayed him. He tripped and fell face first onto the blade, stupidly impaling himself. The palace staff absolutely lost it. They prayed for a miracle, but the prince was already bleeding out with a massive sword through him. A maid sprinted off in a panic, desperate to find a physician before the prince kicked the bucket. Gruhorn was stunned. He was literally losing his vision all because his new wielder was an absolute idiot. Adrian was a greedy, talentless pig, a dark cloud looming over the kingdom whose reputation was already ruined. Shockwaves ripple through the kingdom as news of the stabbing breaks. Against all odds, the prince somehow cheated death. The palace staff is shook that his usual explosive tantrums have vanished. They suspect he's just playing it cool for now. Thinking he's just traumatized, they're certain the old spoiled brat will return soon. They have no clue what's coming. The real Adrian is gone, replaced by the legendary Gruhorn. Now, reborn, he keeps himself locked away in his chambers. A maid orders him to prepare for the king's arrival, but Adrian hits her with a cold, don't care. Since his father ignored his deathbed, Adrian's done being respectful. The terrified maid begs him to watch his tongue. The elite, sharp-eared royal knights are lurking nearby. Suddenly, the knight positioned behind the servant speaks up. He dismisses the maid, scoffing that the king never expected anything impressive from this trash prince anyway. Adrian draws a total blank on the man's identity, staring at him with a look of pure confusion. Annoyed, the knight reminds Adrian of their sacred bond as master and disciple. He warns him not to play dumb. That's when the realization finally hits the new Adrian. This man was the original Adrian's mentor. Still, Adrian doesn't play nice, doubling down on his blatant disrespect. The king has arrived. Adrian watches as a cold, intimidating figure marches toward him with authority. Gruhorn assumed the Leonberg bloodline had grown weak and pathetic over the centuries. He was dead wrong. The king's presence is overwhelming. He immediately lashes out, barking that Adrian is still the same disappointment. Not even a brush with death fixed his attitude. A knight quickly intervenes, claiming Adrian's memories are fractured. Accepting the excuse, they immediately summon the royal physician. The doctor arrives instantly to examine the prince's condition. The exam reveals nothing physically wrong with Adrian's body, but then, the doctor drops a bombshell. He suggests the amnesia might be a temporary side effect of severe mental trauma. The king is speechless. He's stunned that Adrian supposedly has brain damage. To him, this whole memory loss thing feels way too convenient. If his past is wiped clean, then every sin he's committed is basically erased from his record. It infuriates the king that Adrian gets a free pass instead of drowning in guilt for his past crimes. The king's rage boils over until the master steps in. That's when Adrian realizes he's in deep trouble. He isn't being handled like royalty, he's being treated like a wild beast that needs to be tamed. He curses his predecessor's pathetic legacy. While Adrian mulls over his chaotic new reality, something unexpected happens. The queen suddenly pulls him into a crushing embrace, promising that his memories will surely return soon. She insists his past mistakes don't matter, she's just overjoyed that her boy is finally awake and breathing. Cupping his face, she praises his good looks, while confessing how her world would have shattered without him. She's relieved he survived the accident, completely unaware that her real son's soul has already departed. This new Adrian is merely a legendary sword inhabiting a human shell. After her emotional display, she departs. She promises to return soon. Once alone, our protagonist begins to process the gravity of his situation. He's horrified that he accidentally ended the life of a descendant he was sworn to protect. Despite the accident, he accepts his fate. He must now step into the prince's shoes and live his life. As a sword reincarnated to fix his wielder's disasters, he vows to make the absolute most of this. He's determined to turn this around. Despite having zero talent and a sluggish body, his motivation is peaking. Recalling his past glory, he's confident that fixing Adrian's life will be a total walk in the park. Step 1. Forge a mana heart. He takes a stabilizing breath and begins drawing in raw magical energy. He attempts to channel it into his core, but to his horror, the mana simply evaporates into nothingness. It's like his flesh is rejecting the power. Refusing to fail, he grits his teeth for another attempt. He pushes his limits repeatedly until his stamina hits zero. He collapses, his entire body screaming in agony. He curses this defective vessel. Even a trash body should have responded to his forced mana infusion. In his past life, pure force always worked. Suddenly, as he's reeling from the failure, someone enters. A maid appears, delivering a restorative tonic from the queen. She warns him about the brew's bitter taste. She promises it's for his health, but she's visibly shaking as she speaks. She's terrified he'll hurl the bowl at her face, just like the old Adrian used to do. Adrian's eyes widen as he senses pure mana radiating from the bowl. Zero hesitation, he snatches it up. Chugging every single drop, he leaves the maid completely speechless. With a cold flick of his wrist, he dismisses her. After she bows out, the room falls silent. It was time. Adrian prepares for another shot at forging a mana heart. Unexpectedly, that tea packed a punch. But the essence was fragile, a tiny spark that could vanish within 24 hours. He stops the maid before she vanishes down the hall. He needed more of that liquid gold immediately. Days of grueling failure pass until finally the breakthrough. The mana heart was within his reach. Instantly, he forces the energy into his chest, smirking about the countless times he'd mastered this in his previous life. Sudden agony rips through him. It felt like acid melting his veins while a bomb detonated inside his ribcage. Crashing to his knees, he realizes this process is pure hell. But blacking out isn't an option. One slip and mana backflow would tear him apart. Adrian grits his teeth, forcing his mind to stay razor sharp. He wrestles with the chaotic energy, taming the wild surge and steering it back onto the correct spiritual path. Using surgical precision, he anchors the mana deep into his heart. Success. The core finally stabilized. A surge of pride washes over him. This was his heart, a source of power uniquely forged for his new life. But just as he's basking in the glow of victory, a holographic status window flickers into existence. It confirms the birth of his mana heart. Adrian's jaw drops. The interface looked eerily familiar. This was the exact same system he used to display for his masters back when he was a legendary blade. Why was it manifesting now? Suddenly, A notification pings. Connection is being restored to the origin. But his excitement quickly turns to dread as the system reports critical errors. The news was catastrophic. The link was failing, leaving almost all of his god-tier authorities completely locked and unreachable. Only his judgment ability remained online, though severely restricted. With this nerfed power, he could scan the potential of anyone at his level or weaker. But that wasn't all. The third eye flickered to life, granting him supernatural vision, followed closely by another notification. His third ear was also functional, drastically boosting his hearing. Adrian immediately put his upgraded senses to the test. His vision became crystal clear, and suddenly, the hushed whispers of the maids outside the door echoed in his ears. He was about to eavesdrop on their gossip when a warning flashed. His mana was bone dry. His godlike perception vanished instantly. Now he understood what the system meant by extremely limited. The legendary awareness he once wielded as a sword was gone, leaving him feeling blind and deaf. Still, by squeezing out his last scraps of mana, he managed to catch a few muffled words from the hallway. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. He knew that once his mana pool expanded, his true power would return. But first, his stomach growled. Starving. Adrian barked an order for a feast immediately. The maids scrambled to comply. Adrian realized his top priority was mastering this fragile human vessel. Later, his mother arrived, her face glowing with joy. She was thrilled to see. Her son had finally drained every drop of his medicine. To her, it meant he finally valued his life. Beside her stood a man with a face like stone. She asked if Adrian remembered him, but Adrian just shook his head. He really has lost his mind, the man muttered. This intimidating figure was none other than the queen's own brother. The queen confirmed it, pleading with her brother to step in and train his struggling nephew. Her brother scoffed, telling her she should celebrate Adrian's amnesia instead of mourning it. After all, his past was pathetic and best forgotten. Adrian could tell right then, this guy absolutely hated him. The uncle coldly remarked that the most he could do was burn off Adrian's pathetic body fat. Don't expect miracles, he warned, his gaze piercing right through Adrian's very soul. Adrian knew he was in deep trouble. Within minutes, he was being hauled off to the brutal training grounds. His uncle barked that from now on, Adrian needed permission for everything, even the very air he breathed. His royal status meant nothing here. Any hope of being pampered like a prince was officially dead. Show me something worth seeing, his uncle challenged, hinting he might reveal their family's forbidden sword arts. Adrian couldn't believe his situation, but with fire in his eyes, he stepped forward to face his new nightmare. Proposing a high-stakes wager, he vows that within 6 months, his uncle will finally respect his strength. Adrian pledges total submission if he fails. But should he triumph, a wish must be granted. Seeing only a source of amusement, his uncle accepts the challenge. Reality soon bites. Adrian's out-of-shape frame feels more like a prison than a warrior's tool. Mana is the answer. He begins incinerating his excess weight with energy until his uncle suddenly intervenes. The man grips him, face pale with worry, demanding if he actually forged a mana heart. Adrian smirks, confirming his success, while mocking his uncle for potentially regretting their bet so soon. The mood shifts instantly, as his uncle's tone turns cold and dangerously enraged. He barks at Adrian, demanding why he'd choose such a path, and who taught him that forbidden method. Confusion clouds Adrian's mind until the brutal truth is finally dragged into the light. A mana heart is bottom-tier trash used by lowly mercenaries, a revelation that sends shivers down Adrian's spine. Dismissing the claims as nonsense, Adrian scoffs. But instead of arguing, his uncle decides to demonstrate. The elder commands him to watch as mana begins swirling around his palm like a ring. These are mana chains, designed specifically to shatter the inferior energy produced by a mana heart. He crushes the light to prove its superiority. It's far more stable and efficient than Adrian's old-school method. The Eli family crumbled a century ago because they clung to that obsolete power system, leaving the mana heart as a relic of failure. In the modern era, it's completely extinct. Studying the theory, Adrian learns that mages favor circles, while knights weave intricate chains. A warrior's true rank is determined solely by how many chains they can successfully link together. Stages range from a single link all the way up to the legendary pentachain tier. Closing the book, Adrian begrudgingly admits that this logic isn't just empty talk. He stops. The founder's name, Ernest Altringen, rings a bell. Memories of a distant past resurface. An old comrade once met this self-proclaimed sword saint, who had arrived to challenge the Leonberg legacy. Ernest wielded a bizarre style, neither pure swordsmanship nor true magic, blurring the lines of combat. Ernest's fate remains a blur. By dawn, training resumes as his uncle tests his newfound knowledge. He asks if Adrian finally grasps the hopeless reality of his situation after reading the texts. The elder calls his choice a blunder, but Adrian remains defiant, refusing to acknowledge any error. His uncle wonders, is he genuinely ignorant of the danger, or just too prideful to yield? Adrian retorts that not every mana heart is created equal, casting a sharp look back. He asks if his uncle understands the difference in class. The man scoffs, thinking he's delusional. He compares him to low-life mercenaries chasing ghost stories of ancient heroes, only to end up as trash. If Adrian is truly special, he must crush a double-chain knight. Only then will he act as his guardian. It was his mother's dying wish, yet Adrian merely scoffs at the idea of such protection. He taunts his uncle's worth, questioning if the man is even capable of guarding someone like him. That insult hits home. His uncle's composure snaps, and his raw aura begins to flood the air. He declares his title, Count of the Kingdom and Supreme Commander of the Northern Army. The Master of the Black Lancers reveals himself, letting his terrifying power run wild. Guards nearby tremble, paralyzed by a sheer pressure that pins them to the spot. The arena drowns in his shadow. This is the might of a quad-chain knight, wielder of 4 rings. At the peak of his aura, he reveals his legendary name, Vale Balarhard. He tells Adrian that a titan like himself is the only one fit to stand behind him. He asks if his power is enough. Vale finally draws back, leaving guards gasping for air. Weapons are drawn as guards panic, but Vale merely grins, enjoying the chaos he caused. Unshaken by the display, Adrian smiles back, warning the man not to retract his promise. Moments later, Adrian is eating dirt, broken but breathing. Vale suggests they go another round. Dawn breaks as Adrian drags himself upright, the chilling memory of his brush with death haunting his every move. Vale's brutal mockery echoes in his mind. Surviving a single-chain knight would be nothing short of a miracle. Forget a double-chain monster. Entering his quarters, he finds the royal physician lingering, waiting to deliver some unexpected news. Adrian snaps, demanding answers, only to learn the queen herself dispatched the medic to oversee his recovery. She ordered a direct infusion of healing magic, but as the doctor prepares, Adrian lets out a sharp, defiant roar. He flat-out rejects the treatment, physically shoving the confused physician toward the door and barking at him to vanish. Healing now would sabotage his brutal training progress. Later, as Adrian focuses, an uninvited guest disrupts his concentration. His brother enters, leaving Adrian lost. Carl quickly remembers the prince has zero recollection of his royal siblings. Carl leans in close to whisper a crucial identity check for his amnesiac master. He reveals the visitor is the third prince. The royal sibling approaches, feigning concern about Adrian's recent accident, while hiding a smirk. He scoffs, calling it a tragedy that Adrian survived. Adrian brushes off the toxicity, coldly questioning the snake's true purpose. Fury simmers beneath the surface as Adrian speaks with unearned pride. The third prince decides to play his hand. He brings up a juicy rumor, Adrian's insane wager with Vale to duel a formidable double-chain knight. Grinning like a predator, he offers himself as Adrian's executioner. Upon hearing this ridiculous challenge, Adrian can only stare in disbelief. He wonders if the Leonberg bloodline is just cursed with absolute idiots. Carl interjects, warning him about the third prince's true power. Gillian has been hailed as a sword prodigy since birth. Adrian remains skeptical, but the facts are hard to ignore. Carl confirms Gillian mastered 2 mana rings by age 14, a terrifying speed. Suddenly, an interruption breaks the tension. A maid arrives with a mountain of correspondence. Adrian is confused. Why would these nobodies start flooding his inbox now? These people ignored him for years. He tears one open, and the contents instantly shift his entire perspective. They are dual requests, every single one. This is nothing but a legalized chance to beat the prince senseless. It is open season on Adrian. Instead of fear, a wicked smirk crawls across his face. He loves being underestimated. He instructs the maid to log every single name. These fools just added themselves to his personal hit list. At the training grounds, Vale tosses a wooden blade into the dirt. He demands Adrian take up the weapon immediately. He needs basic skills for the wager to mean anything. Vale won't tolerate any pathetic excuses when the duel arrives. No one can claim he lost due to lack of training. Adrian reaches for the sword, cursing Vale's arrogance. Why couldn't the guy just hand it over? As he straightens his back, a sudden, searing pain shoots through him. He gasps in agony as his muscles seize, shocking Vale. The knight rushes over, asking why the healing magic failed. Adrian retorts that, as a knight, Vale should know better. Divine healing magic comes with a significant trade-off. It resets muscles to their weak baseline instead of letting them grow stronger. Vale is absolutely stunned by his insight. He can't deny the logic. Backing away, Vale dismisses the debate, focusing solely on the harsh lesson at hand. Right or wrong doesn't matter now. Vale commands Adrian to lock his eyes on the next display of power. There are no second chances here. This is the foundational technique every knight in the kingdom must master. It is the standard training style. With fluid grace, Vale unleashes a series of breathtaking, elegant strikes. The air ripples as the magnificent style sweeps everything aside like a tidal wave. Adrian is completely entranced. Stunned, Adrian asks for confirmation. Is this truly just the basic style taught to every rookie knight? Vale misreads his shock as disappointment. He admits the style might seem lackluster or missing that lethal edge. It lacks killing intent but remains true to the fundamentals, making it perfect for a beginner to grasp. Vale continues his lecture, but Adrian suddenly erupts into hysterical laughter. He recognizes that basic style immediately. This is the legendary Dragon Slayer style, the divine art that once decapitated the great mad dragon. He is flabbergasted. How did a godly technique become a mere warm-up exercise? Vale keeps droning on. Vale worries it is insufficient, but Adrian interrupts. He has seen enough. This style is his destiny. Nothing else compares. Adrian begins to mimic the motions, channeling the long-lost power of the Dragon Slayer. As he swings, the pieces of the puzzle finally start falling into place. It is deemed weak because the mana heart was discarded, leaving the blade hollow and devoid of will. Without that spark, the sword is dead. Vale abruptly halts him, claiming Adrian's strikes lack any real power. Vale delivers sharp strikes to his midsection and legs, punishing him the moment his arms tense up. Wielding a blade requires perfect flow, not raw force. Vale commands sternly. Adrian yields to the lesson. He knows his current vessel is painfully frail. Even a mock Dragon Slayer style feels awkward, yet he's desperate to prove its true glory. This legendary style isn't some discarded relic. Fueled by spite, his resolve hardens. Adrian dives into a hellish regime. 30 days vanish in a blur of sweat and steel. Suddenly, a system alert flashes his grueling efforts have finally reforged his physical essence. The morbid obesity debuff softens into general obesity. It's a massive win for his progress. His internal fire ignites as his metabolism kicks into overdrive, signaling a biological evolution. Muscle memory finally takes root. Better yet, that cursed clumsiness trait is officially gone. Every movement now yields maximum gains. The system dings again, with more shocking news. Steady mana cultivation has permanently altered his DNA. Adrian smirks. The stats don't lie. His blade now cuts through the air with newfound fluidity. He's evolved. Adrian is lost in a trance of violence until Vale's roar shatters his focus. Stop. Trapped in a battle trance, he only snaps out when Vale forcibly parries his strike. Oblivious to the torrential downpour, Adrian stands soaked. Crimson leaks from his shredded palms. Blood mingles with the cold rain, pooling at his feet. But the gore isn't the real shocker. Behind him lies the carnage. The heavy training dummy has been absolutely pulverized. Static electricity dances over the wreckage. Vale barks at him for training during a lethal storm. You'd be a charcoal briquette if that blade were steel, Vale warns grimly. Adrian remains silent, staring at his raw skin, as the system confirms his total awakening. His soul has memorized the peak of focus. In that fleeting second, a miracle occurred. Notification. The hyperfocus trait is born. A dark grin spreads across Adrian's face. He cheated death by a hair's breadth. Then, his overtaxed body finally gives out. Vale catches his falling frame. When Adrian's eyes flutter open later, reality sinks in. He forgot this body has limits. In his past life as a sentient blade, he was god tier. He was a ghost of war, a kingdom's founder, and a harbinger of absolute victory. He forged legends and shaped souls, yet he was always just a silent observer, an outsider no more. He swung until collapse, drunk on the high of his own effort. This sweat and pain are finally his, but if he keeps redlining like this, he'll break. He needs a perfect equilibrium between his indomitable spirit and this fleshy vessel. With 30 days of mana heart cultivation under his belt, his reserves are finally swelling. It's time to ascend. Adrian draws a deep breath, channeling raw energy through his core. The system chimes his unyielding grind has triggered a massive physical rank up. His mana heart expands, forcing his very cells to evolve to handle the surging power. A brilliant blue aura erupts around him. He feels invincible, a smug smirk touching his lips. It's finished. He grips his hilt, checking his new status. The results are breathtaking. Rank, Sword Learner. He can finally wield aura. Adrian gazes at his reflection in the cold steel. With the basics mastered, he heads back, only for Vale to drop some spicy tea. The whole kingdom is talking, kid, Vale sighs. The topic? That insane bet Adrian made. It's annoying as hell. Go pick a fight and end this, Vale grumbles impatiently. Adrian had blanked on the bet, but he quickly reassures Vale. The target is already locked. A double-chain opponent is a suicide mission right now. He needs a warm-up first. He decides to smoke some single-chain losers before moving on to the main event. Do your worst, Vale scoffs. Adrian turns to Carl with a sharp look. Is it ready? Carl confirms everything is ready, handing over the stacked list of vengeful duelists. Adrian's plan is simple: use these haters as high-stakes target practice. Carl warns that these noblemen aren't coming to spar, they're coming for blood. Adrian knows the risk. which is exactly why he's bringing in Vale as the referee. His only demand? Ensure that no one actually dies during these friendly sessions. Days later, the first challenger arrives at the palace gates, fueled by pure spite. Meet Taylor Tailham, the second-born son of a lowly baron house with a massive grudge. Years ago, Adrian ruthlessly roasted Taylor's family for their basic outfits at a royal gala. That one insult tarnished their honor, turning them into the nobility's favorite punchline. Ever since that day, Taylor's father and brother have lived in constant humiliation. Determined to settle the score, Taylor marches onto the training grounds to face the prince. Adrian immediately starts trolling, mocking Taylor for being way too stiff for a simple match. He even questions Taylor's knighthood, calling him weak, sending the baron's son into a blind rage. Taylor's fury explodes, his killing intent radiating so intensely that it shakes the very air. Vale instantly shuts it down, forcing Taylor to retract his spirit before things get ugly. Taylor freezes, starstruck to be standing before a living legend, his face flushing bright red. Adrian quips that Vale carries more royal energy than the actual prince himself. Vale claps back, reminding Adrian that his past behavior is exactly why they're in this mess. Adrian goes quiet, knowing his scandalous history is a weapon everyone uses against him. The match begins, and Taylor instantly surges with mana, wearing a twisted, villainous smirk. He lunges forward, but Adrian feels absolutely no threat from Taylor's desperate opening strike. Adrian yawns at the pathetic attempt, effortlessly parrying the blow with zero effort. Taylor's eyes widen in horror. He realizes Adrian is actually utilizing a mana heart. It's impossible. How could a mana heart completely overpower his refined mana chain? Adrian doubles down on the disrespect, loudly asking Carl if this knight is actually a fraud. That felt like a tickle, Adrian scoffs. Just as his blade begins to emit a strange hum, every spectator goes silent, their eyes fixed on the vibrating steel in Adrian's hand. Vale's jaw drops, its sword resonance. Refusing to believe it, Taylor charges back in a frenzy. He rains down a barrage of savage strikes, but Adrian's defense remains absolutely impenetrable. Exhausted, Taylor retreats, while Adrian remains calm, analyzing a thing or two from the exchange. Adrian levels his blade at Taylor's throat, coldly advising the hothead to chill out. Closing his eyes, Adrian focuses, reaching deep within to awaken the dormant Dragon Slayer's will. Suddenly, his calm blue aura ignites into a violent crimson flame. He's tapped into forbidden power. By fusing his heart's energy with the legendary sword, he becomes a true apex predator. The sheer pressure shatters the surroundings, leaving Taylor paralyzed with primal fear. Realizing Adrian has lost control, Vale's instincts scream that someone is about to die. Vale roars for him to stop, as Adrian blitzes Taylor with terrifying, murderous intent. Remembering Adrian's earlier request to stop him from committing murder, Vale springs into action. There's no time for finesse. Vale has to intervene before Taylor is sliced in half. Vale teleports into the path and delivers a brutal kick, sending Adrian crashing into the stone wall. Guards instantly surround Vale, their blades drawn as they scream about his treasonous assault. They warn him that harming royalty is a death sentence, but Adrian suddenly gasps for air. The prince orders them to stand down, admitting he'd specifically asked Vale to check his power. He mumbles about the knockout being overkill before passing out and waking up in his bed. His first instinct is to scan his mana heart, relieved to find it still pulsing strong. He senses it immediately. Vale's aura is on a completely different level. Still, he's just relieved there are zero side effects. As he celebrates the win, Vale suddenly flickers right beside him like a ghost, scaring the daylights out of him. Vale asks what's so funny. Adrian's stunned by his uncle's sudden appearance, and the man demands an explanation for his actions. He grills him about that specific sword style. Adrian just shrugs, claiming he was simply being true to the sword's essence. Vale isn't buying the act. He believes a kid who's never tasted real combat has no right to even mention essence. To a veteran like Vale, Adrian's words are hollow since he's never stood on a true, blood-soaked battlefield. He's disturbed that Adrian's essence is nothing but raw killing intent, calling the vibe both immoral and deeply unsettling. Still, he admits it's a necessary evil. Adrian's shocked his uncle isn't dropping some self-righteous, knightly lecture on him. Vale just scoffs. He's a soldier, not a knight. He walks the path of cold victory, not moral righteousness. But he warns him that bloodlust is going too far. Eventually, he won't even be able to distinguish friend from foe. Adrian finally gets why his uncle is making such a fuss. He's actually trying to help him fix his broken style. Vale vows to keep a close watch, waiting to see if Adrian's inner demons eventually consume his entire soul. 3 days later, the grueling practice duels finally wrap up. Adrian gives Taylor a nod for surviving the 3-day ordeal. Poor Taylor had to tank a blade fueled by uncontrolled malice for 72 hours straight. It was pure psychological torture. There's no doubt Taylor went through absolute hell. He's likely devastated since he couldn't even graze Adrian once. As Taylor hides his bitterness, Adrian calls a maid to bring out a pre-prepared gift box for his opponent. Taylor is totally lost. He asks what's inside, wondering why the prince is suddenly being so generous. Adrian brings up the past, how he treated Taylor like trash. This box won't fix it, but it's a start. He tells him to deliver the gold and the letter inside to his father, Baron Taylor, without delay. After handing over the peace offering, Adrian simply wishes him a safe trip. Taylor is left completely flabbergasted. Adrian knows he doesn't owe anyone for his past self's mistakes, but he believes hard work deserves a fair payout. Thanks to this, the duel becomes the kingdom's biggest gossip. People were low-key expecting a total disaster or a scandal. To everyone's shock, none of the opponents have a single bad word to say. The haters are absolutely losing it. They conclude the royal family must be silencing everyone. The rumors only get weirder and more toxic by the day. Adrian is beyond frustrated. He's convinced these nobles are just jobless and have way too much free time on their hands. He decides to pivot. After giving his next opponent a gift, he firmly tells him to spread the actual duel results. He says it with such terrifying intensity that the poor guy can only nod in total fear. Adrian hopes this kills the fake news. Instead, he's dead wrong. The rumors just mutate into something even worse. Now the tea is that he's threatening his rivals into faking the results. He literally can't catch a break. Done with the PR nightmare, Adrian goes full beast mode, training mercilessly and obliterating his next sparring partner. After an intense session, he asks Carl for a head count. Only one challenger remains, arriving later today. Adrian notes the apprentice knights are no longer a challenge, but Carl warns him this last one is the real deal. This fighter wasn't satisfied with family tradition. They joined the knighthood purely to perfect their lethality. Their name? Arwen Kargayan. Moments later, Arwen appears, and she's a total stunner. She's legendary for her beauty and for breaking men's hearts. The guards are completely simping, wondering why a top-tier beauty would even bother showing up to this practice. At the same time, the staff are grabbing popcorn, waiting for Arwen to finally humiliate the arrogant prince. She hails from the Iron Lion Knights, the kingdom's absolute peak in terms of fame and deadly skill. Arwen is a probation knight, a rising star whose official spot in the elite roster is already guaranteed. Even Adrian is puzzled. Why would a genius-tier talent like her waste time sparring with someone like him? Carl leans in with the explanation. Apparently, it all started with a massive misunderstanding between them, leaving the crowd baffled as to why a powerhouse would even show up. Meanwhile, the onlookers are itching to witness a total train wreck once Arwen mops the floor with Adrian. Speaking of the Iron Lion Knights, they're basically the kingdom's elite, top-tier warrior squad, unmatched in prestige and lethality. As a probation knight, Arwen is a literal prodigy with insane potential. Her permanent spot is already locked in. Adrian even asks Carl why someone with Arwen's insane talent would waste her time dueling him. Carl explains, it all stems from a major past misunderstanding. Adrian knows the tension between him and Arwen is far deeper than just a simple, typical misunderstanding. He grills a maid for the cold truth, demanding she reveal every trashy thing he once did to Arwen. The maid spills the tea. Adrian's past insults were foul. Hearing his thirsty banquet behavior, Adrian's inner monologue screams in cringe. Back then, he'd cornered Arwen, hit on her beauty, and even dared to wrap an arm around her neck like a creep. She'd brushed him off. Arwen kept it strictly professional, setting some hard boundaries. She schooled him on knightly boundaries, which made the toxic, old Adrian lash out and call her a hideous thing. Now, Adrian's shook. How could his past self call a literal goddess like Arwen a hideous thing with a straight face? Arwen greets him coldly, claiming he's the same brat. Adrian shoots back. He's evolved into a completely different man since those days. Count Vale hits the training grounds just as Arwen formally introduces herself to the high-ranking noble with pure grace. Vale warns her, Adrian's blade is savage. Adrian's jaw drops. His supposed neutral ally just sold him out to the enemy. Ignoring the betrayal, Vale shouts the signal. The duel is live. Let the chaos and steel finally begin. Arwen drops into a low, lethal stance. Adrian's hyped to see the legendary skills of this Iron Lion prospect firsthand. Like a flash, she lunges. Adrian's impressed by her cracked movement speed as she closes the gap in a heartbeat. He blocks her strike, but a mana backlash hits like a truck, forcing him to cough up fresh blood instantly. Still, he parries her steel. A fierce, high-stakes battle erupts as Arwen begins to dominate the rhythm of the duel. Arwen's raw power is overwhelming. Adrian realizes he's getting absolutely washed while fighting at his current power level. Time to lock in. Adrian ignites the Dragon Slayer's heart, sending his internal aura into a state of total overdrive. His presence explodes. Arwen freezes as Adrian effortlessly tanks a blow that would have crushed him just moments ago. Shocked, she leaps back, needing to re-evaluate the monster now standing before her on the field. Not bad, Adrian smirks. You're way better than the usual fodder I've been styling on lately. He activates his judgment authority. Arwen's potential is insane. She's literally built different than anyone else. Since the skill only works on equals, Adrian knows he has a legit winning chance. This is peak hype. The real war starts here. Adrian grins, knowing this fight is about to go absolutely nuclear. They clash until sundown. Both are gassed and bleeding, but their eyes are still screaming for more action and blood. Vale finally kills the vibe, forcing them to stop and settle the score the following morning. Adrian flexes about his performance, and Arwen matches his energy. Both want to keep the smoke going immediately. Vale shuts it down. It's late, they're both bleeding, and it's time for the royal healers to do their job. Royal physicians go to work, weaving high-tier magic to mend the brutal bruises earned during their epic stalemate. They walk off, throwing daggers with their eyes. Neither side is willing to take the L when they return tomorrow. By day 3, there's still no winner. The guards and spectators are losing their minds over this legendary deadlock. Everyone realizes Adrian is actually cracked. He's going toe-to-toe with a literal genius. Will the final clash end today? Before the final round, Adrian stops her. Arwen warns him, if he's trying to apologize, he should just keep his mouth shut. No mercy, no apologies. Arwen won't accept pity. Adrian realizes what is truly at stake for her pride. She's fighting to reclaim her shattered pride through pure strength. Honestly, that is major main character energy right there. No apology, Adrian clarifies. Since we're going this hard, let's make it interesting with a prize for the victor. The bet? The loser grants the winner any wish. The guards are absolutely scandalized. This is way too reckless and risky. They panic, trying to remind the prince that a royal shouldn't be making such wild, unhinged gambles. Adrian isn't having it. He snaps at them to stay in their lane. He turns back to Arwen. She reminds him she's just an apprentice, a humble knight serving the royal family's crown. Disrespecting royalty isn't usually her style, but today, she's ready to break all the rules. Since the prince is giving the green light, she's all in. She won't hold back a single bit. Her aura flares like a supernova. Adrian commends her. This is exactly the kind of heat he was looking for. Arwen blitzes forward, warning him not to regret his words later. The final round is officially underway. Their blades scream as they collide again, sparking a lethal dance of high-speed steel and pure willpower. Suddenly, Adrian shifts gears. He reveals god-tier speed Arwen hasn't seen since the fight began. The real battle starts now. Arwen falters, questioning if Adrian's been nerfing himself. Their blades continue to clash in a frantic dance of steel. Before she can react, the momentum shifts. Adrian lunges forward, closing the distance in a lethal blur. He unleashes a crushing strike. Arwen attempts a desperate parry, but his blade shears through hers like paper. Arwen drops to her knees as the crowd gasps. Total silence falls. Even she can't believe she lost. As she reels from the defeat, Adrian looms over her. With a smirk, he reminds her, the bet is won. Honoring their deal, he makes his demand clear. I want you. Arwen's world stops at his bold claim. Watching from the sidelines, Carl recalls his initial prejudice. He'd expected a spoiled brat, not this formidable beast. Reality was far different. Sure, the prince was arrogant on day 1, but there was something beneath the surface. Those rumors of violent tantrums? Total cap. Instead, the prince was grinding every single day without fail. He practiced like a man possessed. Carl was stunned seeing him push through torrential rain, never breaking his rhythm. Lightning nearly struck the prince, but he didn't flinch. In that moment, Carl felt a chill down his spine. Adrian was destined for greatness. Yet, in the present, he's shook by the prince's reckless demand to the knight. The guards cringe at the perceived lust, while Carl questions everything. Did he misjudge the prince's true character? With a cold gaze, Arwen asks if he's serious. Adrian confirms, noting her status as a lowly apprentice knight. She lost to a useless prince. But Adrian pivots, clarifying that he's actually after her untapped potential and future. He wants a warrior who chooses him, not someone like Carl, bound only by a king's mandatory decree. Simply put, he demands a sword that belongs solely to him. Complete and total loyalty. This was a calculated gamble. He'd witnessed her raw talent and refused to let such a gem slip away. He drops the bombshell, become my knight. Arwen stares back, her jaw practically hitting the floor in disbelief. She's floored. Memories resurface of a past where nobody ever acknowledged her as a true warrior or equal. Since childhood, she ground twice as hard. Yet, despite outclassing every peer, the title of knight remained out of reach. She proved her worth, but doors stayed shut. Now, Adrian is betting everything on her future and raw skill. The offer leaves her breathless. She searches his eyes, wondering if this arrogant prince is actually being for real. Arwen demands one condition. He must see her as a knight first, and never just as a woman. If he accepts, her life is his. Adrian locks eyes with her, giving his solemn word without a second's hesitation. Right there, Arwen drops to one knee. She pledges her eternal loyalty to the prince she once despised. Her sword and her life now belong to him. Watching the scene unfold, Vale is left completely lost for words. Adrian taps her shoulders with cold steel, officially knighting her. Word soon spreads, sending shockwaves through the noble circles. High society is losing it. They can't fathom why a talent like Arwen would serve such a notorious brat. She'd rejected all their prior offers. Now, the nobles suspect there's a much darker secret between the two. Rumors swirl that the knighthood is just a front. They think he's secretly making her his forbidden mistress. When the gossip reaches Adrian, he facepalms in pure frustration. The misunderstanding is getting completely out of hand. Am I really the villain here? He feels like the ultimate CEO of scumbags thanks to these wild rumors. Noticing the prince's stress, Carl brings up that intense conversation from the day of the final duel, about wanting a knight who isn't forced to stay. Adrian smirks, asking Carl if that harsh truth actually hurt. If the king ordered him away, Carl would leave instantly. Adrian teases him, enjoying the knight's visible inner conflict. He tells Carl he can swear loyalty later. Carl immediately bites, asking if Adrian would even accept his pledge. Adrian shoots him down. There's no fun in training an old dog. Carl lets out a shaky, awkward laugh. Carl thinks it's a joke, but the prince is dead serious. Soon after, an official royal decree finally arrives. His probation is officially lifted. Adrian is stunned. He didn't expect to be off the hook this early. The king seemed ready to rot him in a dungeon forever. Adrian can't help but voice his confusion. He wonders what the old man is plotting. Carl asks why he isn't more hyped about his newfound freedom. Adrian shrugs it off. Even if he's free to leave the palace, it's not like he has anywhere to go. He's got zero connections and zero plans. Suddenly, a maid interrupts his thoughts with a mysterious delivery. A high-profile invitation has arrived. It's a summons to an exclusive social club for the kingdom's elite. Young lords. The maid mentions Adrian's membership in this elite club, prompting him to question its reputation. She admits the young lords use women like her for sport. Adrian instantly realizes it's just a den for debauchery. A playground for booze and women? Hard pass. Adrian refuses, claiming his grueling training schedule is far more important. But then, a formal invitation from a friend named Bernardo catches his eye. He's from the Eli family. That name Eli rings a bell. He remembers his past life, specifically Vale's warning about a family obsessed with mana hearts. The Eli house crumbled after pursuing the forbidden craft of mana hearts. Intrigued by this connection, Adrian's stance shifts. He informs the maid he'll attend after all. She immediately begins prepping his finest attire for the event. Adrian hopes the family hasn't hit rock bottom yet. Fast forward 4 months, and his transformation is finally complete. Through blood, sweat, and sheer willpower, the trash prince has shed his former husk, sculpting a powerful new physique. Even the royal stylist stands frozen, awestruck by his glow-up. Adrian modestly notes he's merely dropped a few pounds. The stylist corrects him. Adrian has literally halved his waistline, becoming a total heartthrob. Adrian orders a masterpiece for the upcoming palace banquet, and the tailor eagerly accepts the commission with a bow. Suddenly, Adrian halts the process. He knows his gains aren't finished. Those measurements will definitely need updating soon. Probation finally ends. Adrian sets out for the young lord's social club, ready to face his so-called high society friends. Carriage rides are a drag. Bored, he contemplates the exhausting life of royalty before noticing something on his maid. She's always been his shadow. Today, a faint scar catches his eye, prompting him to question the mark. Her answer chills him. It's a mark of my incompetence. Translation? The former Adrian was a total monster to her. Pure rage boils in Adrian's veins. Every secret he uncovers about his past self is more sickening than the last. He's lived with her for months, yet realized he doesn't even know her name. He feels a pang of guilt. Adelia Byron, she whispers. The name hits Adrian like a freight train. He's heard that surname in historical legends. He recalls the Byron name from ancient history back when kingdoms were just a dream and humanity was prey. Humans were once the weakest race, slaughtered like cattle until a group of legends rose to end the suffering. This sparked a great war, and thanks to those warriors, humanity finally claimed its place as the continent's masters. Known as the Five Electors, one legendary woman among them wielded the blade Gruhorn with unmatched prowess. She tore through giants like paper. It was she who claimed the giant king's head, shattering their reign forever. History knows her as the iron-blooded sword Marquess, the terrifying Agnes Byron. Her name was synonymous with victory. Recalling Agnes's legendary foul mouth makes Adrian's head throb. That woman was an absolute nightmare on the battlefield. Yet, he's far more interested in how a descendant of the iron-blooded Marquess ended up as a maid. Adrian is baffled that a descendant of the great Agnes Byron is now reduced to serving as a maid. Moments later, Carl announces their arrival. As Adrian exits the carriage, he tells Adelia they'll talk properly later. Bernardo welcomes the prince with a greasy smile, bowing low and asking if his dear friend is doing well. He fakes relief at Adrian's safety. Adrian is disgusted that such a snake represents the Eli family. The noble keeps yapping until he notices Adrian's unsettling smirk. "Is something wrong, Prince?" he asks, shivering. "I'm just glad I came," Adrian replies coldly. This whole situation is about to get way more entertaining. He taps Bernardo's shoulder and walks past, leaving the noble sweating and deeply unsettled by his new aura. Inside the club, the nobles waste no time. They're already drunk, bragging about the women they've manipulated. Bernardo knows something is off. Usually, Adrian would be acting like a drunken fool by this stage. Instead, the prince is composed, exuding an aura that is completely different from his former pathetic self. One noble approaches Adrian, sneering about how he claimed Arwen. Adrian stays silent as the man continues. He boasts he was one step late, claiming he had his sights set on Arwen long ago. Others join in, lamenting that they didn't steal her oath first. The room fills with their disgusting laughter. One creep wonders aloud what's hidden beneath Arwen's armor. Adrian's patience finally snaps. He's heard enough trash. He turns to the dude, asking if he has siblings. The noble is baffled by the random question. The noble confirms he has a younger brother. "That's a relief," Adrian mutters, his eyes flashing with violence. Before the noble can blink, a heavy fist crashes into his face, sending the arrogant fool to the ground. He chokes on his drink, spitting it out as horror washes over the room. Even Bernardo is completely clueless. Adrian approaches the man, coldly remarking that it's a relief his bloodline won't officially die out. Without hesitation, Adrian crushes the man's jewels beneath his boot. As the man shrieks in agony, Adrian icy informs him that his younger brother is now the heir. He continues the brutal beatdown, leaving the onlookers paralyzed with pure terror. The battered noble whimpers, asking why this is happening, but Adrian simply looks down at him. He can handle them calling him trash, but he won't tolerate them actually believing he is one. The others are lost, having no clue what he means, but Adrian just keeps throwing hands. A final punch sends the guy flying. Adrian then summons Bernardo, who instantly drops to his knees. He reminds Bernardo that he promised an entertaining day. Internally, Bernardo wonders when Adrian became this unhinged. Adrian commands him to summon the royal knights. Bernardo freezes, but then realizes he has no choice. He quickly sprints away, desperate to fulfill the prince's terrifying new orders. Adrian turns to the women and tells them to vanish. Naturally, one of the guys tries to sneak out too. Adrian stops him, noting that only the ladies are allowed to leave. He's free to go, but only if he's willing to leave his manhood behind. The guy instantly remembers the crushed eggs. He panics, remembering the crushed eggs. Adrian then calls them out for being arrogant. They showed zero respect, openly mocking him while dragging his knight's name through the mud. Turning to Carl, Adrian asks what the legal penalty is for such blatant disrespect. Carl enters, stating that looking down on the royal bloodline is a direct insult to the crown. The nobles freeze, finally realizing they've messed with the wrong prince. They are absolutely cooked. To make matters worse, Carl adds that challenging royal authority is nothing short of high treason. Carl urges Adrian to give the word, asking which of these fools should be forced to their knees. With a chilling smirk, Adrian orders guards to force everyone to their knees. The king later summons Adrian to scold him for immediately causing a scene. His probation barely ended before 14 noble children were tossed into a dungeon under his orders. The king is absolutely livid. Invoking royal authority forces a punishment, but the political backlash from 14 noble houses will be massive. Adrian anticipates the king's worry, telling him not to stress over the family's reactions. He explains that these nobles are actually the black sheep and outcasts of their own clans. They are nothing but irreparable trash, who do nothing but stain their family names by simply existing. Adrian tells the king to send a specific letter, leaving the monarch completely baffled by the request. There are people who can silence the internal drama of these families better than anyone else. He's talking about the ambitious siblings of those arrested. A wicked grin spreads across Adrian's face. He asks the king if he's wrong, leaving the ruler stunned and forcing him to just dismiss Adrian. Adrian bows out with a satisfied smirk, knowing the king has run out of arguments. Afterward, he meets Adelia, who begins to shake violently at the mere sight of the prince. He tries to reassure her, but she continues to tremble like a leaf caught in a storm. Adrian instantly realizes just how much trauma his past self must have inflicted on this poor girl. He's shocked that the name Agnes has been erased, as if her legendary glory and arts never existed. The Byron family's once mighty prestige and pride have vanished, but a bigger surprise awaits him. He checks Adelia's stats and is stunned. She possesses S-rank swordsmanship and A-rank mana sensitivity. Her traits are wild: butcher, war maniac, fragile heart, caregiver, and even a slave mentality. Adrian is floored by how broken and terrifying these traits are. The butcher trait triggers a bloodthirsty frenzy, while War Maniac turns her into a battle-obsessed monster. The slave mentality forces her to be entirely dependent on others. Adrian's jaw drops in pure disbelief. Adelia's hidden potential isn't just high, it's practically illegal. But there's a massive catch. She lacks any mental defense to cage the insanity swirling within her. Adrian hesitates, wondering if unleashing this ticking time bomb is a mistake. A moment later, his mind is made up. He simply can't let a literal S-rank cheat code walk away. He needs her on his side. Then, he spots a loophole he can exploit her slave mentality trait. It's the perfect tactical advantage. This unique trait means she finds ultimate bliss in serving a master with her entire soul. Adrian steps forward and demands her absolute loyalty. Adelia just blinks, looking completely lost and confused. He clarifies that he's drafting her as his personal knight. Right then, she collapses to her knees. She stammers, claiming a humble girl like her could never handle such a prestigious burden. Adrian cuts through her doubt, reminding her that she called her own family insignificant. He promises to safeguard her kin himself. In exchange, she must swear her life and soul to him. This is his master plan to help her leash that inner madness she can't control alone. Her eyes go wide. "You'll actually protect my family?" she asks, her voice trembling with hope. Adrian nods. He'll even move them to the capital so she can visit them whenever she wants. With a radiant smile finally breaking through, she agrees to every single one of his terms. Without a second thought, she pledges her eternal loyalty, vowing to serve him for the rest of her days. Pleased with the result, Adrian pats her head. From now on, his every command is her absolute law. Her face flushes a deep crimson as she accepts her new fate. She's officially his. Still, Adrian wonders if he's playing with fire. Meanwhile, scandalous rumors begin to spread through the palace. The news that the prince turned a random maid into his personal knight becomes the ultimate gossip. Everyone assumes he's just starting a harem. Adrian is floored. They never cared about his life before. Now that he has a loyal bodyguard, the court is suddenly out for his blood. Even the king is convinced Adrian is just wasting his time chasing after beautiful women. From his judgmental uncle to his irritating brother, everyone has a nasty comment about his choice. When his mother visits, even she, his biggest ally, seems to turn her back on him. The queen concludes Adrian is acting like a fool because he needs a wife to settle him down. Adrian is stunned, but before he can even argue, his mother snaps at him and storms out. Later, Adrian summons Adelia to his chambers. It's time for her to finally awaken her dormant mana. With the memory of Agnes fueling him, Adrian channels raw energy directly into Adelia's body. The system pings with success. Mana has been successfully imprinted, flowing perfectly through her veins. A mana heart begins to beat within her. Adelia gasps, finally witnessing the true power of mana. Adrian explains that she's successfully forged her core. Now, she must train during every spare moment. He barely finishes his sentence before his legs give out, and he collapses from pure exhaustion. Adelia panics, but Adrian is just frustrated that creating one tiny mana heart drained him so fast. He assures her he's fine and just needs a bit of rest to recover his strength. Adelia is overwhelmed that he'd push himself so far for her sake, but he simply dismisses her. He notices her staring with a strange intensity before she bows deeply, radiating total devotion. She swears to serve him faithfully, forever. Adrian is satisfied, knowing he's gained a powerful weapon. He warns her never to forget who her master is. Yet, deep down, he's still slightly worried. Days later, Carl reports that Bernardo is being held as a key witness until the trial starts. Adrian is stressed, dreading the possibility of having to show up in a crowded courtroom. Carl reminds him that royalty doesn't deal with petty trials. Adrian breathes a massive sigh of relief. Still, he feels like this whole situation is escalating way faster than he originally planned. He turns to Adelia, who is diligently cleaning, and asks how she's holding up lately. He demands to know if her mana heart has finally stabilized. With a calm nod, she confirms it. Adrian makes the call. Adelia's training regime begins effective immediately. He orders her to swap that maid uniform for gear and report to the arena. She's a warrior now, not a servant, a fact that clearly rubs Vale the wrong way. Adrian double downs, making it crystal clear that Adelia is officially his chosen knight. Vale snaps, barking that knighthood isn't a game, and Adrian's being completely reckless. But Adrian's had enough of the old man sticking his nose in royal business. He bluntly asks why Vale even shows up if everything here pisses him off. Their heated spat is cut short as a gasping Adelia finishes her 10th lap. Noticing the tension, she timidly offers an apology, fearing she caused their little rift. Adrian brushes it off, shifting focus to teaching her the fundamental combat stance. He demonstrates a precise sword swing before challenging her to replicate the motion. Adelia grips her wooden practice blade, her eyes narrowing with absolute, razor-sharp focus. To everyone's disbelief, she mirrors the complex form perfectly after seeing it just once. She innocently asks if she got it right, leaving a speechless Adrian totally floored. A chill runs down his spine. If he slacks, this girl will definitely eclipse him. He knows her ingrained slave mentality only bows to the truly, undeniably powerful. The realization of what happens if she outpaces him now is honestly terrifying. Vale is already scouting her, but Adrian warns him to keep his hands off. His uncle scoffs, mocking Adrian's lack of experience as a mere greenhorn novice. Tensions explode as Vale unleashes a crushing aura that suffocates the entire training yard. He tries to force Adrian's submission, claiming the boy can't possibly control her. The old Adrian would have cowered, but the man standing there now doesn't flinch. Adrian fires back, declaring that if he can't handle her, then absolutely no one can. He's fueled by the blood of monsters, even channeling a fragment of Gruhorn's soul. A sinister crimson aura flares up as he claims ownership of his new knight. He warns Vale never to covet what's his, because he absolutely loathes being robbed. Suddenly, the world turns icy. Gruhorn's dark essence is threatening to seize total control. Adrian's sheer willpower shoves the soul back, narrowly regaining his fleeting grip on reality. Vale notes that one knight saves 10 men, but a legend saves 100. He believes Adelia's potential could literally save thousands on the bloody battlefield. Adrian wonders if his uncle is already plotting to use her as a commander. Coldly, Adrian dismisses the notion, leaving Vale stunned by his total lack of concern. Adelia interjects, swearing her life to Adrian alone and rejecting any of Vale's offers. While Vale stands shocked, Adrian smirks, glad he tapped into that terrifying dark power. Her slave mindset demands a master. Seeing her choice, Adrian dismisses his uncle's interference. He points out that his weight loss goal is met, so training is officially over. He delivers an ultimatum. Stop meddling or lose your invitation to the palace entirely. Vale begrudgingly accepts, though he still lurks nearby just to keep tabs on Adelia. Silence is the rule now. And Adrian loves seeing his arrogant uncle finally humbled. During a session, Adelia suddenly triggers sword resonance, sending shockwaves through the air. Adrian claps for the cameras, but internally, he's sweating over her insane growth rate. Vale approaches, demanding to know if Adrian taught her the forbidden mana heart technique. Adrian doesn't deny it, causing Vale to explode at him for using cheap tricks. Spotting Adelia listening in, Adrian's patience evaporates instantly as he glares at Vale. Without a second thought, he tells the old man to beat it and leave. Vale keeps barking, claiming Adrian nuked a golden opportunity. Unbothered, Adrian just orders Carl to show his uncle the door, but Vale bites back, insisting he'll walk out on his own terms. As he retreats, a worried Adelia asks about the cheap trick comment. Is the mana heart actually just garbage? Adrian shuts that doubt down instantly. Still, Adelia is shook by the insults. Adrian explains his uncle is just clueless, just like everyone else stuck in the past. He promises they never would have dumped the mana heart if they realized its true potential. He swears Adelia will witness its god-tier power for herself very soon. Arriving at the training grounds, Adrian is stunned to find his uncle waiting. Vale wastes no time, diving straight into his purpose. He challenges Adrian to prove the mana heart's worth, promising to use only one ring. If Adrian moves him even an inch, he will earn his respect. Adrian unsheaths his blade, reminding his uncle that the stakes of their wager still stand a single wish for the victor. Vale smirks, vowing that if the boy wins, he will grant any desire, no matter how impossible. Without a second's hesitation, Adrian lunges at his target, aiming a lethal strike at the throat, but Vale shifts effortlessly. Adrian refuses to hold back, pouring every ounce of skill into the onslaught, yet he cannot even graze a single strand of Vale's hair. The man is an immovable fortress, dancing around every desperate swing. Finally, Vale catches a heavy blow, mocking the boy's futile efforts and asking if he's tapped out. Skidding back, Adrian gasps for air, his muscles screaming. Vale mocks him, asking if he's done, but Adrian stands firm. His resolve is as unyielding as bedrock. Inside, he admits the brutal truth. His uncle is a monster. He realizes Vale is just biding his time, waiting for him to burn through his mana just to crush his spirit completely. It is painfully clear that his current mana heart isn't enough to bridge the gap. Adrian chuckles, remarking how ironic it is that ancient knights reached legendary heights using these very hearts. But with the rise of modern techniques, the old ways are now dismissed as garbage. Vale scoffs at the lecture, but Adrian's gaze turns sharp, declaring that it wasn't the mana heart that failed, it was the weaklings who lacked the skill to master it. He insists that not all hearts are created equal. With a confident, predatory grin, he asks if Vale knows the martial spirit hymn. Vale snaps back, reminding him they're here to fight, not to hold a history lesson. Adrian knew he would say that, since Vale views the mana heart as a peasant's tool, fit only for low-life mercenaries. Vale sneers, asking if Adrian needs more time to talk since he's clearly out of breath. Adrian ignores the taunt, dropping into a menacing stance He begins to chant the anthem of 100 hard-won victories. The rhythm builds, vibrating through his core until the martial spirit hymn erupts from his mana heart. Lethal aura flares from his blade as the system confirms the birth of a sparring hymn. He triggers the skill instantly, ready to unleash the true, terrifying potential of the mana heart. Yet, Vale remains unimpressed by the flashy display, coldly stating that no matter the trick, the outcome is fixed. As long as he relies on a mana heart, he will never shatter the power of a mana chain. Adrian tunes out the noise and bolts forward, but Vale shuts down the strike. Adrian feels the shockwave. The mana ring is designed to force a violent backflow into his heart, just as that single clash proved. Seeing the boy tremble, Vale laughs, praising his pathetic ability to at least stay standing, but Adrian couldn't care less about the pain. To forge this sparring hymn, he endured 1,000 crushing ring strikes across 100 brutal duels. This power was born, specifically to dismantle knights who rely on mana rings. His blade begins to hum, with a violent, concentrated energy, fueled entirely by the sparring hymn. Finally, he has found the ultimate test subject for his masterpiece. He explodes forward, raining down a relentless storm of steel. A flicker of doubt finally crosses Vale's face. He never imagined the brat could maintain this pace. Forcing a desperate parry, Vale demands to know how he is pulling this off. Adrian simply scoffs, repeating that his heart is built different. Enraged, Vale finally stops playing around, cursing the boy's arrogance. He delivers a devastating blow that sends Adrian hurtling across the grounds, declaring that playtime is officially over. Still, he admits it is impressive that the boy survived his wrath for this long. Struggling to his feet, Adrian realizes one thing: a standard-grade martial spirit hymn won't cut it. His body is a wreck from just that single, heavy impact. Wiping blood from his lip, Adrian resumes his lecture, claiming ancient knights failed their heirs by leaving the world too peaceful, clearing every threat before they died. At first, their legacies were pure, from their secret sword arts to the divine refinement of the heart and the radiant hymns. But time is a cruel thief, eroding those legendary feats until they were nothing but whispers. Now, tales of unseen dragons and the reign of giant kings sound like nothing more than bedtime stories. Adrian mused that these legendary tales likely sounded like mere bedtime stories to the modern world. He knew new martial arts existed, but they were parlor tricks only good for swatting away a few knights. These once divine hymns had been neutered, relegated to basic human skirmishes until they became completely obsolete. Adrian dismissed the mana chain, calling it a dead-end technique that could never touch true godhood. Vale stood there, completely lost, mockingly asking Adrian if he'd spent the whole day hitting the bottle. In an instant, Adrian's tone turned ice cold as he called out Vale's name with sharp authority. He branded Vale an arrogant fool who had no clue what ancient wonders had been stripped from them. Suddenly, Adrian's blue aura surged, darkening into a blood-red haze as he prepared to deliver a brutal lesson. His body overflowed with raw energy, promising a technique designed to shatter dragon scales and taste their blood. Adrian attempted to ignite the legendary dragon-slaying hymn, but the harsh reality of the system struck back. A warning flashed. His current stats were far too low to contain such a high-tier divine hymn. Adrian hissed in agony as the technique was stripped down, leaving him with only a meager quarter. With that fraction of power, he lunged, his blade screaming toward Vale, who barely managed a desperate parry. Vale's eyes widened as his own sword began to spiderweb with cracks. He was about to get crushed. Panicked, Vale unleashed a forbidden trump card, triggering a massive explosion that blasted Adrian into the distance. Adrian hit the dirt hard, but as the smoke cleared, he immediately recognized Vale's desperate move. He reminded Vale of their deal, one ring only, yet Vale ignited 4, and even then, his sword shattered. Deep down, Adrian knew heart mana was outclassed by ring mana, but in this moment, the match was over. "You lost," Adrian declared, leaving Vale frozen in a state of utter shock and total disbelief. Later, Adrian bolted upright in bed, drenched in sweat from a nightmare where Gruhorn tried to seize control. This was the heavy toll for forcefully tapping into the forbidden depths of the martial spirit hymn. Since the dragon-slaying hymn was now a myth, his mortal body had nearly self-destructed from the strain. But Adrian didn't care. The power was worth it. He immediately began channeling mana to evolve his sparring hymn. The system chimed with success, and a predatory smirk crossed Adrian's face as he felt the surge. This was the edge he needed to face the third prince, Jillian. Suddenly, Adelia rushed in, looking relieved. She was terrified when he collapsed, explaining that the entire palace had descended into absolute chaos. Apparently, the queen had completely snapped at her brother, but Adrian just shrugged it, served them right. Adelia mentioned that Vale was waiting for an update, but Adrian told her to keep quiet for now. He needed time to heal his fractured spirit, or he would face a punishment worse than death. Overusing the martial spirit hymn meant his mind was a ticking time bomb of ancient echoes. Past memories and present reality were blurring into a mess that threatened to shatter his very psyche. If the boundary collapsed, he'd become a hollow madman, trapped forever in a world of fragmented ghosts. He'd be forced to endlessly relive the violent, agonizing moments of his previous martial spirits. A chill ran down his spine. He refused to be enslaved by sword memories after finally becoming human. Later, Adrian spoke to Adelia about her ancestor, Agnes, telling her she was destined for that greatness. However, he warned her that she was currently miles away from filling those massive, legendary shoes. She would need to undergo a grueling evolution to even stand in the shadow of Agnes's legacy. When asked why she even learned the blade, Adelia hesitated before dropping a bombshell of an answer. "I want to be your sword," she declared, stunning Adrian to his core with her absolute conviction. That heartfelt oath was the spark, the exact way the greatest hymns of old were truly born. Adelia's aura flooded the room as she pledged her entire existence and future to Adrian alone. The system pinged. Adelia had unlocked the hymn of subordination. Adrian watched, mesmerized, as the energy gathered. A martial spirit hymn influences everyone, birthing a terrifying new power known as the hymn of domination. While subordination is a master's pledge, this version is a soul-binding contract that transcends the physical realm. Adrian was floored. He couldn't believe a descendant of Agnes would submit her very soul like this. Adrian successfully crafts the hymn of subordination. He's definitely vibing with this massive, unexpected power-up. Plot twist. As the spell's primary target, Adelia's rapid growth now becomes Adrian's own personal flex. Totally overwhelmed by the assist, Adrian actually thanks Adelia. Later, our protagonist is just chilling, minding his own business. The Queen Mother drops by for a vibe check. Adrian claims he's Gucci, but the atmosphere is low-key awkward. She's the one who loved him even at his worst. Now, she asks if he's still salty toward Uncle Vale. Adrian swears there's no beef. However, the Queen isn't buying it since Vale was always breathing down his neck. He stands his ground, insisting he holds no grudges. Honestly, Adrian isn't sweating the small stuff at all. He already shattered his uncle's ego with that one hit. That's a wound that won't heal anytime soon. Vale is currently drowning in the shame Adrian planted that day. Still, Adrian hopes his uncle can level up. If he has the guts, he'll transcend. If not, he might just lose his legendary martial arts forever. Adrian couldn't care less about the outcome, though. The Queen mentions that Vale has lived for the blade. He spent more time with swords than people, making him a total social disaster with zero chill. Surprisingly, Vale is actually proud of Adrian now. He even went to the king to beg for a favor. Turns out, Vale was the secret MVP who negotiated an early end to Adrian's house arrest. But naturally, Adrian chose chaos the second he was free, leaving Vale looking like a total clown. Now Adrian understands why Vale was so triggered, but he's curious why his uncle went that far. Enter Nicolo, a high-tier scholar assigned to force some serious brain gains onto our main character. Adrian is not having it. He literally hits the floor in a full-blown tantrum to avoid the books. He sees zero reason to study. Nicolo claps back, saying without knowledge, he's basically just a wild animal. "Are you seriously calling me a beast?" Adrian yells. Nicolo just smirks, saying he's barely even a student yet. Savage move. Adrian's fuming, claiming he's already got a big brain and knows everything there is to know. Even though he looks young, Nicolo decides to challenge Adrian's infinite wisdom with a high-stakes bet. They'll debate a few complex topics together. If Adrian's skills are actually as legendary as he claims, Nicolo will vanish forever. Adrian smirks and accepts the challenge instantly, but before he knows it, he's completely locked into the lecture. Nicolo then slides him a mysterious, legendary-looking tome. It's called The Theory of the Iron-Blooded Monarch. Nicolo promises it's a spicy read for a future ruler. The book breaks it down. Ruling isn't just power. It's a high-stakes contract between king and subject. Adrian is already deep in the pages, while Nicolo explains the ultimate exchange of power and support. Kings get the military and economic clout, while the people get that sweet, sweet protection in return. Loyalty for political stability, it's the ultimate trade. Adrian is glued to the book, totally vibing with this logic. He agrees that every relationship is about give and take energy. Before they knew it, the entire day had vanished. Nicolo is the one who finally calls it quits. "See you tomorrow," he says, with a knowing grin. Adrian waves him off with a smile, but the second the scholar is gone, reality finally hits him. He just spent the whole day studying without even realizing it. How did he get played like that? Meanwhile, Nicolo is impressed this kid isn't the trash prince the rumors described. Fast forward a few days. Adrian is rotting in bed from pure boredom. Poor Carl can only watch his master suffer in silence. Did he live too diligently? Without training, this peaceful life is actually about to end him. His body is still in recovery mode, though. Suddenly, he gets word that Uncle Vale is at the door. Adelia asks for his call. "Let him in," Adrian smirks. He was already expecting this visit. It's been a few days since their duel. The moment Vale walks in, Adrian sees he looks absolutely wrecked. That mental trauma Adrian planted is still eating him alive. Vale finally gathers the courage to speak. "I'm sorry." Adrian is shook. The legendary warrior is actually apologizing for breaking his own oath. He nearly deleted Adrian during their fight and offers no excuses. He's owning his mistake like a man. But real talk? Adrian knows it wasn't Vale's aura blade that put him on bed rest. He just went way too hard with that dragon-slaying skill. Now, Vale is ready to pay his debt. He actually tells Adrian he's down to give up an arm if that's what it takes to settle the score. Adrian shoots him a look of pure disgust, snapping that he has no need for such trash. He can't believe a legendary martial artist like his uncle is such a mental wreck. Deciding to play the nice guy, Adrian offers him a way out. He finally drops his first demand. His wish? A simple field trip. He wants Vale to let him out of the palace for an outing. Vale's thrown for a loop. He reminds Adrian that his probation is long gone, he's free to go whenever he wants. But Adrian shuts that down. He's not talking about some quick stroll. He wants to leave the capital behind. Vale hesitates, noting that a full-scale trip takes time to organize. Plus, with the royal banquet looming, they can't wander too far. Adrian just shrugs, totally cool with those terms. Vale heads out, promising to hit him up once the itinerary is locked in. The moment the door closes, Adrian catches Carl staring at him with a weird look. Carl admits he's shocked. He honestly expected Adrian to demand something way more cold-blooded or terrifying. Since Vale was the one who flaked on his word, Carl thought this was the perfect chance to really bleed him dry. Adrian just sighs, admitting he actually felt a bit of pity for the old man. Carl bursts into laughter. He's genuinely surprised Adrian even has a heart. Adrian grumbles back, telling Carl he's getting way too comfortable. Later on, Adelia interrupts their banter with a new letter. Adrian cracks it open. It's from Arwen, flexing her latest major breakthrough. Adrian can't help but smirk. That's exactly the kind of progress he likes to see. 5 days later, the schedule arrives. And 48 hours after that, it's go time. Adrian is buzzing with excitement for the trip. He's practically hanging out of the carriage window like a kid. He yells to his uncle, asking which territory they're hitting up first. Vale just watches his nephew's pure excitement. He tells him to sit back down before he explains. Their destination? Ellen County. It's the Crown's premier hub for heavy-duty weaponry. The land is packed with high-grade iron mines and a legendary guild of mastersmiths. In all seriousness, Vale explains, over half of the royal family's arsenal is forged right there in Ellen. Adrian's eyes light up. A land of blades? Perfect. It's high time he secured a top-tier sword of his own. He'd originally planned to just raid the royal armory, but Carl drops some bad news. Royal decree says he can't just grab whatever he wants. If he wants a god-tier blade, he's got to go out and find it. Vale might look like a rough-around-the-edges warrior, but he's actually pretty thoughtful, dragging Adrian to the best forge in the land. And so, their 20-day trek to Ellen County finally kicks off. Ellen County is just a pit stop, though. The real goal is Iron Lion Castle, another 2 days out. They'll hit the castle, then loop back to the capital. But right now, Adrian is losing his mind after days of being cooped up. To make things worse, Adelia is sitting right across from him, and she's zero fun. Every question he asks gets a boring yes or no response. Total vibe killer. Bored out of his skull, Adrian decides it's time to check in on his mana heart. Overusing the dragon-slaying him left his mana reserves bone dry. It's time for a recharge. He shuts his eyes, pulling every scrap of mana from the surroundings. Suddenly, something feels different. His mana heart has actually expanded significantly since he last checked. Then, the system chimes in. By attempting a move that should have been impossible for his level, he caught a glimpse of a colossal will. This is the payoff for forcing that overpowered dragon-slaying him. The system confirms his physical build has leveled up too. His body is now a much better vessel for power. He's officially stepped into the realm of a sword expert. His connection to the origin is sharpening. But wait, there's more. Adrian realizes the locks on his recovered authorities are finally breaking. The skills he already had are now hitting way harder than before. A satisfied smirk creeps onto his face. Adelia notices the prince suddenly looking very pleased with himself. Finally, they roll into Ellen County. They're greeted by the local lord, Edgar, and his heir, Torrance. Adrian plays the polite prince, thanking them for the welcome, while everyone assumes he's just exhausted from the road. Edgar leads the way to the guest quarters. As they traverse the sprawling mansion, Adrian realizes why this territory is so renowned. It's a hub for legendary armaments, yet Adrian remains unimpressed by the lackluster weaponry he's seen so far. Everything is just flashy, low-tier junk, useless in a real life-or-death struggle. Adrian's disappointment grows as his hopes start to wither. He's convinced he won't find the treasure he's searching for here. Turning to Edgar, he finally breaks the silence. He asks if the legendary blacksmith's guild is nearby. Edgar confirms it, and Adrian immediately demands a change of plans. On their trek to the forge, Edgar warns that these master smiths are as stubborn and unyielding as the iron they strike. They're notorious for ignoring even the Lord when they're in the zone. They finally step into the roaring heat of the workshop. The sight of the blasting furnace instantly captivates Adrian. Edgar tells him to speak up if the blistering heat becomes unbearable, but Adrian is totally locked in. This intense atmosphere triggers memories of his past life back when he was a sentient sword. Amidst the chaotic clanging of hammers and sweat, one specific figure catches his eye and pulls him in. It's an elderly man in the corner. Adrian stands there, mesmerized as the master strikes the glowing iron with divine precision. The scene mirrors his own reincarnation as a blade. Adelia is forced to wipe the heavy sweat pouring down Adrian's focused face. Her touch finally snaps him out of the trance, making him realize just how deeply he'd been pulled into the old man's rhythm. Suddenly, the head blacksmith halts the work, summoning all the artisans to drop their tools and greet the prince. Edgar introduces the leader, but Adrian doesn't give him a second thought. His gaze is glued to the old master. The elder is still hammering away, completely ignoring the royal presence. The forge leader erupts, screaming at the old man in a rage. He demands the smith stop and bow, but Adrian's hand shoots out, stopping the man before he can interrupt the masterpiece. He won't let anyone break the master's flow. Adrian also notices the resentment building in the other blacksmith's eyes. They were dragged away from their life's work just to perform a hollow greeting. Adrian himself is beyond annoyed. He never gave the order for such a useless, distracting ceremony. He barks at them to get back to their stations before the fires die out. Without a second of hesitation, the crew rushes back to their anvils. Adrian remains, silently watching the old man work with legendary dedication and soul. As the iron is smashed into shape, a bizarre sensation washes over Adrian, leaving an icy shiver racing down his spine. Later, Edgar reveals the truth. This old blacksmith has been forging and melting down his work for 6 straight months. Adrian wonders if the man is just creating failures, but the reality is much more mysterious. Edgar explains that every single blade the old man produces is a flawless masterpiece, the peak of the craft. That's why he's called the Master Smith. His creations are completely perfect, with 0 defects to be found. It's a total enigma why he destroys them all. For the past month, he hasn't slept, clinging to his work like a man possessed. The staff is worried sick. After all, his body isn't as young as it used to be. But Adrian sees it differently. He recognizes the spirit of a true, transcendent craftsman who won't settle for anything less than God tier. Days pass, and Adrian becomes a fixture at the forge, arriving at dawn and leaving only when the moon is high. The old man continues his silent battle with the steel, while Adrian observes in a respectful, heavy silence. People expected the prince to cause trouble, but to their shock, there wasn't a single incident or outburst. The quiet peace eventually ends as the day of the prince's departure finally arrives. Adrian can't hide his regret. He really wanted to see the finished blade before he had to move on. He prepares to head out, telling his squad they're leaving at first light the following morning. There's a farewell banquet that night, but Edgar is devastated, having hoped the prince would witness the master's final work. As Adrian gets ready for the party, the weight of the missed opportunity hangs heavy in the air. Suddenly, Edgar bursts into the room, shouting that the master smith has finally finished the sword. Adrian sprints to the forge and finds the old man polishing a blade that radiates a blinding, transcendent glow. The master turns, bows deeply, and offers the legendary weapon to Adrian. Edgar stands there, absolutely floored by the gesture. Adrian accepts the steel with the grace of a true king. He asks the old master if his creation has a name. The smith whispers Twilight. For him, his life is at dusk, but for Adrian, it is only the dawn of a new era. Adrian is struck by the depth of the answer and lets out a genuine, hearty laugh. He tells the old man he's got a poet's soul for a blacksmith, just before the exhausted master begins to lose his balance. Adrian lunges and snatches him, ordering Carl to tell Vale he's bunking with the old man tonight. Alone at last, the master smith confesses that the blade only took life when Adrian first stood behind him. It was as if the steel had been waiting, choosing its own birthday to align perfectly with his arrival. Shaken, Adrian decides to share a massive secret, leaning in to whisper a truth that would change everything. The moment he reveals his true identity, the smith is completely floored, trembling uncontrollably on his deathbed. Exhaling a final sigh of relief, the smith finally understands it all and asks for the blade one last time. Using his final spark of life, he prays the sword becomes as legendary as the man wielding it. Adrian holds his hand, promising greatness, before the old master passes. The next dawn, Adrian prepares to move out. Edgar pulls up with a flashy, high-end sword, trying to play it cool while presenting the gift. He claims this magic blade is way easier to handle than the old man's junk. Adrian takes it to inspect. He acts totally impressed by the magic, but internally, he knows this sword is mid-tier trash at best. Still, he decides to secure the bag and takes it anyway, offering Edgar a fake smile. Praising the Ellen family's loyalty to the crown, he leaves Edgar feeling like he won the interaction. In reality, Edgar is crashing out internally because his bait to get the smith's sword back totally failed. He ended up gifting the prince 2 elite blades for absolutely zero return on his investment. At departure time, Vale tells the troop that the heavy infantry will lag while the cavalry sprints ahead. They're way behind schedule. And Vale stresses that they need to move at maximum speed. No excuses. Adrian appears and starts trolling Vale about how stressed he looks after being ghosted the whole trip. Vale reveals he had secret orders from the king, making Adrian realize his trip was a controlled operation. His freedom was a total illusion, and now Vale tells him to mount up for a high-speed ride. That's when Adrian drops the real bombshell. He has no clue how to actually ride a horse. Honestly, you can't blame him, he was a literal sword until just a few months ago. Regardless, the trek to the castle moves forward, though it's filled with pure chaos and unexpected turns. Their half-day sprint turns into a grueling 24-hour marathon, testing everyone's patience to the limit. But the moment they hit the gates, the sheer scale of the Iron Castle leaves even Adrian impressed. Count Walden and a squad of stone-faced knights meet them, their hostility thick enough to cut with a knife. Never one to back down, Adrian decides to stir the pot, calling Arwen forward from the back. Arwen bows low, expressing her devotion, which sends the other knights into a jealous, murderous spiral. The vibes are rancid, apprentice knights are fuming, and even Adelia's murderous aura starts leaking out. Seeing the red flags, Adrian quickly calms Adelia down before she snaps and ruins the greeting. He's glad he tamed Adelia's slave mentality early, then turns his attention back to Arwen for a chat. They have tea to spill, but deep down, he wants the jealous knights to follow and watch. Soon, Adrian hits the training grounds in full gear, calling out the elite knights for a showdown. He demands to see the legendary Iron Lion swordsmanship that everyone keeps hyping up. Total silence. No one wants to catch a case for accidentally hurting a royal prince in a spar. Seeing their fear, Adrian bets the Leonberg name, giving them a total pass for whatever happens next. Even with the immunity, they're still hesitating. So Adrian decides to go for the jugular. He calls them a bunch of spineless, faint-hearted cowards who don't deserve to hold a blade. That hits the mark. A redhead named Dale snaps and steps out, introducing himself with pure salt. He mocks the prince's ego, asking if a royal brat can even survive standing in his presence. Adrian tells him to quit yapping and start swinging, and Dale charges with pure, unadulterated resentment. He goes for a lethal headshot, but Adrian parries like it's nothing, blowing him back with ease. Dale eats dirt, knocked out cold in one hit, while Adrian flashes a savage smile at the crowd. He asks if there are any more volunteers, and another guy named Paul steps up to the plate. Paul gets murked just as fast, as Adrian begins ruthlessly farming the apprentice knights like they're nothing. Adrian mops the floor with the trainees, his expression oozing pure boredom. Plotting to provoke the elites, he instantly spots the perfect opening. He calls for Arwen, declaring she's leaving with him. Her shock is visible. She bows in submission, but a sudden shout from behind kills the vibe. Bait taken. A menacing, hulking knight stomps toward Adrian with a glare. He proposes a bet to spice things up, brazenly offering Arwen as the prize. Adrian shuts him down, snapping that Arwen isn't some trophy. He demands a different wager. Ordering Carl to fetch Twilight, Adrian unsheathes his blade, betting it all. Arwen's heart drops, realizing Adrian is dead serious about this live blade duel. She offers herself instead, but he refuses, calling her infinitely more precious than steel. A swordmaster's value eclipses any weapon. Smirking, the knight eagerly accepts. He introduces himself as Dunham of House Fahrenheit, an elite Iron Lion knight. He's nearly a triple chain, but Adrian scoffs, labeling him a basic double chain. Fuming, Dunham brags his sword is the 17th masterpiece from the legendary mastersmith. Dunham bets his blade, but Adrian grins, revealing his own sword shares the same creator. It is the smith's 100th creation. Dunham is shook, no such rumors existed. Adrian doesn't blame his ignorance. It's a final masterpiece, forged only days ago. Dunham ignites his aura, preparing to strike while lecturing Adrian on his misguided path. He vows to show his utmost power. Adrian just smirks, ready to teach him reality. Hearing his path insulted, Adrian decides it's time to take this fool to school. He tells Adelia to watch intently. This is the path she must master from now on. Adelia pledges her loyalty. Meanwhile, Vale meets with the commander in his private quarters. This marks their 4th castle visit. Apparently, the 4th prince couldn't care less about power. Yet, the 3rd and 5th princes swarmed while Adrian was under probation. Even the 2nd prince dropped by. Walden admits Adrian is still the only rightful heir. Despite his trash reputation, Walden blames Vale for isolating the young prince. Vale ghosted him for years. Now, His sudden change of heart leaves Walden suspicious. Vale can't deny it. He once threw Adrian away, viewing him as a budding tyrant. He recalls scolding a young, intoxicated Adrian, who was drowning in some wicked potion. That day, Adrian snapped, swinging a sword at his own uncle in a rage. Seeing a hopeless scoundrel, Vale retreated north, only to receive a gift of poisoned wine. Adrian sent it with a shamelessly friendly letter. Vale actually drank the toxic brew, burning the cheap poison with mana. He simultaneously incinerated his last shred of affection. But suddenly, this nightmare nephew flipped the script, diving into soul-crushing training. He's evolving daily. Walden reminds Vale that he once swore Adrian must never rule, but Vale sees the truth now. He begs Walden to give Adrian a chance. Let him stand at the same starting line as the other princes. Vale bows low. Begging for a reconsideration, Walden wonders, has Vale changed, or is it Adrian? Before they can decide, a frantic knight bursts in, screaming about the training grounds. Rushing to the scene, Walden tells Vale to chill. Dunham knows his limits. Even in a duel, Dunham wouldn't dare brutalize royalty. Vale's reply is chilling. I'm not worried about the prince, Vale mutters. I'm worried about his knight. Walden mocks him, calling him pale and delusional. Then they reach the field. The sight before him is absolutely unbelievable. Walden's jaw hits the floor. Reality is far more chaotic than they imagined. The duel is already over. Dunham hits the dirt, completely out cold, while Walden watches in total disbelief. Vale smirks, reminding him he warned about the unexpected. Turns out, during that clash, Adrian recalled his uncle's wisdom on double ring knights. Suddenly, it all finally clicked. His current sparring him was weak, but using the dragon-slaying him was overkill. So, he triggered hyperfocus. The world went silent, and his body moved solo. He calculated Dunham's path perfectly, finding the ultimate angle for a massive counterstrike. Dunham is sent flying. As the spar continues, Adrian finally finds his rhythm. He shreds through opponents like paper, racking up 5 straight wins with ease. The knights are hyped. This performance lets Adrian add a new verse to his hymn. Its rank hits extraordinary, evolving the sparring hymn into the legendary hymn of dueling. Adrian exhales in relief. Completely drained, he collapses to his knees in exhaustion. A knight rushes over, paying serious respect to the insane victory Adrian achieved. Surprisingly, the warriors erupt in cheers, praising Adrian's grit. He's totally caught off guard. They were ready to scrap earlier, but Walden explains the vibe to Vale. Knights are simple men. They only care about the blade and winning. Walden notes Adrian's shocked face. Then, Vale drops some heavy wisdom on him. A fair loss beats a dirty win. Meanwhile, Dunham gets roasted for being salty. Losing his prized sword leaves Dunham speechless. Adrian realizes his old views were wrong. He thought he'd ditched his past, but some things never actually change. Respecting strength and losing with dignity, that is the true, undying soul of a knight. Time to leave. Adrian tells Walden to keep this entire visit a total secret. Walden's shocked. Why hide a flex that would make Adrian's reputation go viral? But Adrian's playing 4D chess. He has someone specific he wants to troll first. That evening, they find a campsite, and Carl heads out to scout the area. Arwen looks lost, but Adrian knows she'll adapt. He heads inside his tent. Adelia's there cleaning. Adrian's annoyed. His S-rank pick is still acting like a maid. Total waste of talent. He heads to bed, leaving a very confused Adelia. He tells her she's dismissed. Once alone, Adrian reflects on these unique Iron Lions. These knights weren't the jobbers he expected. Things are different outside the castle. Using judgment, he sees the truth. Most regular knights actually had 0 talent. Years ago, these B-rankers wouldn't have even reached intermediate expert level. Even with a lifetime of grinding, they'd be ordinary people destined to fade away. Yet now, they're hitting sword expert levels in their prime. It's insane. Superhuman standards have tanked, while the floor for ordinary people has risen. It's the Mona chain. His uncle once chased transcendence, but now that's impossible. He was livid about wasted potential, but in this current, nerfed era, nothing can surpass extraordinary rank. Time has literally shackled the world's growth. He doesn't know this age. Adrian decides to relearn everything from square one. Mid-thought, Vale appears, telling Adrian it's not too late to chase his dream. Keep grinding, he says. Adrian's just confused, wondering what dream he's mentioning. Vale explains. Adrian has already captured the hearts and loyalty of these Iron Lions. Other princes couldn't vibe with them like this. Vale gives him major props. Solid move, kid. Adrian is still 100% lost by this dude's weird talk. He finally asks the man if he has actually lost his mind. Vale just smirks, reminding him of the terms they both agreed on. Adrian's mind flashes back to his wager with the third prince, a gamble that is far from over. Vale interjects, reminding him the bet required slaying a double-chain knight. Suddenly, the truth clicks. Since he had already mowed through multiple knights, the victory was his. Then, Vale's tone turned serious. He swears an eternal oath of fealty, pledging his absolute, official support to the firstborn prince. Adrian stands frozen. To him, the concept of official support feels like a dangerous, heavy mystery. Then the gravity hits him. He is stunned. He never once mentioned wanting to wear the crown. Becoming king was never the plan. But the moment they reach the capital, everything goes chaotic. Word of the alliance spreads instantly. Now, elite royal knights are swarming Adrian's private chambers. A sea of attendants overflows the room. Adrian snaps at Carl to clear out this noisy mob. Carl just sighs. This crowd is here by royal command. His hands are completely tied. They won't budge for anyone. Adrian begs Carl to at least hide them from his sight. Their presence is a massive headache. Miraculously, Carl manages to shuffle the crowd into the shadows. Peace at last for 5 minutes. Then Jillian bursts in, his face red with pure fury. He screams that Adrian played them, secretly training under veil while hiding his true fangs. Jillian rants about Adrian's ambitions, claiming he only held back to spare his brother's dignity. Adrian just smirks. He thanks his dear brother for being so considerate of his feelings. Jillian's rage boils over. He vows to make Adrian regret every single lie and deception. Inside, Adrian is fuming. He blames Vale for painting him as a throne-hungry predator. He tracks down Vale, agreeing to wear the mask of a prince, but only for now. He demands an exit strategy. Why ignite this fire without even asking me first? Vale stays calm, asking if Adrian's fear stems from the safety of the Balehard bloodline. As the shield against northern monsters, Vale insists they are untouchable if the court remembers the winter. As long as the cold reminds them of their debt, they're safe. Adrian finally breathes again. Vale shrugs. This clash was inevitable. It was only ever a matter of when, not if. He asks if Adrian truly ignores the bloody fate of firstborns who fail to seize power. Hiding won't remove the target on his back. Vale offers him time to accept his destiny. He drops a final truth. A firstborn's claim to the crown only dies when they do. Even as Vale leaves, Adrian grips his resolve. He isn't changing his mind for anyone. His focus remains singular, reclaiming the transcendent power he once wielded in his past life. The throne is a boring distraction compared to absolute strength. Then comes the grand banquet. The night finally arrives. As the doors swing open, every eye in the room locks onto him. He strides into the gala, the atmosphere thickening with the intense gaze of the elite. Noblewomen flush as he passes, whispering about his breathtaking, radiant new appearance. Adrian rolls his eyes. All this hype just because he shed some weight? People are dramatic. He scans the high society sharks, activating his vision to peer into their very souls. It is a literal snake pit. They all bear the serpent's heart, the mark of the truly corrupt. The stench of their evil is nauseating. But wait, one soul remains strangely untainted. It is Taylor. Adrian's face lights up as he navigates toward the only clean heart present. Taylor beams, thanking him. He might lack talent, but his spirit is pure gold. To Adrian, a pure vessel like Taylor is worth more than any corrupt genius in the room. Suddenly, the herald's voice booms, announcing Marquis Montpellier from the Bourgogne Empire. Adrian freezes. An imperial ambassador? This arrival changes the entire game board. The entire court bows low as Montpellier struts onto the balcony toward Adrian. The Marquis smirks, commenting on how much time has passed since their last encounter. Adrian stands paralyzed. The name Burgundy triggers his instincts. They are his ultimate nemesis. Adrian's blood boils. Facing the same foes he and Leonberg fought for ages is pure agony. Just as his temper hits the limit, a wine splash interrupts. The culprit immediately begins a frantic apology. He claims he was just too eager to meet Adrian, causing the spill. He strategically stands between Adrian and Montpellier. Masking his pure hatred for the man, Adrian pivots away, claiming he needs a fresh change of clothes. The clumsy noble bows again, blaming his crumbling, aged body for failing to follow his simple commands. Carl steps up to escort Adrian, who whispers a question about the old man's identity. Carl drops a name. It is Marquis Bielefeld. Adrian exhales in relief. Finally, he has found a noble who isn't completely rotten inside. That messy spill actually helped cool his burning rage. Later, Vale storms into Adrian's chambers after hearing the news. Vale mentions Bielefeld's warning that Adrian was on the verge of causing a massive, violent scene. Sensing the murderous aura radiating from Adrian, Vale realizes the Marquis wasn't capping. He begins screaming in frustration. Vale demands answers, but Adrian insists he isn't that reckless. Still, one thing bothers him to his core. The wicked house of Burgundy is shamelessly flexing its power right in the beating heart of the kingdom. The local lords show them more genuine respect than they ever show their own royalty, Adrian notes bitterly. This isn't an alliance, it's a total submission. Adrian asks Vale how the kingdom became so pathetic. Vale explains their dark history, recalling when the kingdom stood tall against every imperial invasion attempt. But as the empire expanded, the power gap widened until it became a massive, unbridgeable chasm. Now that the empire is a global superpower, the kingdom was forced to kneel. Adrian is absolutely stunned. He remembers a time when the smaller kingdom could look the mighty empire straight in the eye. Their entire foundation was built upon martial hymns, the true soul of their warrior culture. Tragically, those legendary songs have been completely wiped from history. Adrian has seen enough. Adrian drops a bombshell. He's changed his mind. When Vale asks for details, Adrian declares he'll become king. Vale freezes in shock. Adrian knows this path brings regret, but he must reclaim what he personally built. The banquet's second day arrives. Adrian practically built half the kingdom, so there is no turning back now. Entering with Vale, Adrian is met with the pure disdain and mockery written across the nobles' faces. Their blatant disrespect for their own kind, while simping for foreigners, triggers a deep, ancient memory. Back then, nobody expected the trash village boy to amount to anything, let alone wear a crown. Yet, despite the odds, Leonberg rose up to lead the people once before. Since these fools won't offer respect, Adrian decides to force it by chanting the king's hymn. The system warns him. His current power level cannot handle the hymn's full, destructive majesty. Most of the verses are stripped away, leaving only 25% of the original, overwhelming power. This hero-grade chant is far more bearable than the mythic dragon hymn. He can endure the burning pain. The hymn activates, manifesting a radiant aura crown upon his head. The sight instantly forces the nobles to bow. Adrian smirks. His gamble worked. The hierarchy has been restored. Before he can dismiss them, a chilling, otherworldly energy flares up right behind his back. He turns to find that the mysterious hooded woman is actually an elf. She's shocked he remembers the hymns. Adrian is paralyzed. This isn't some common forest dweller standing before him. She is something much worse. Pure terror grips his heart. He recognizes this mad woman from his past, and she's bad news. Most people think elves are gentle, peaceful beings, but they couldn't be more wrong about these cruel predators. They use their ethereal beauty as a trap, luring victims in before utterly destroying their very souls. High elves are natural-born hero-grade monsters. They are easily the most lethal of their entire race. However, the woman facing Adrian is far more terrifying than a standard high elf. She's an elder high elf who has survived for over 1,000 years, making her a living legend. Her name is Sigrun, the dancing magic swordswoman who helped butcher the Mad Dragon 4 centuries ago. Back then, she tried to claim his sword, Gruhorn, promising him a life of luxury in exchange. Adrian will never forget the relentless torment she put him through. Adrian panicked internally, fearing the king's hymn he'd just recited would totally blow his cover. Sigrun pressed him, sensing a strange familiarity, but Adrian shut it down with a quick lie. The elf warrior wasn't buying his act for a second. She felt an eerie, unique vibe radiating from him. Adrian played dumb, swearing he'd never seen a real elf with his own eyes before. He kept a straight face despite his racing heart. He remembered her past self. She was an absolute beast on the battlefield. Back then, she was a literal force of nature, a terrifying monster. Sigrun smirked, calling out his blatant deception. She explained that humans usually have two reactions. They either fall into a trance, mesmerized by elven beauty, or if they're high-level martial artists, they immediately go on the defensive. Yet looking at Adrian, she was certain he hadn't reached that elite level of mastery yet. Adrian deflected, claiming he just had eccentric tastes. Sigrun paused, weighing his suspicious words in her mind. She decided to back off for now, leaving him with a cryptic farewell. Once she vanished, Adrian finally exhaled in relief. He'd barely survived that mental duel. Soon after, the queen summoned a horde of potential brides for the prince. It was a total circus. The lineup included everyone from literal infants to grandmothers. No one was off limits. Queen Margarita noticed his disgust and reminded him of his harsh royal reality. "Don't expect the high-class beauties you're used to," she sneered. Suddenly, an urgent report shattered the awkward tension. The elven delegation demanded an audience. The doors swung open as Sigrun and her crew stepped into the light. Sigrun bowed with icy grace. Margarita was stunned. Elves hadn't crossed their borders in centuries. "I heard the prince is seeking a wife," Sigrun stated, her voice cutting through the silent room like a blade. She dropped a bombshell. She was a high elf, royal nobility by any human standard. Her lineage was legendary. Adrian's head spun. What kind of insane game was this woman playing? Then came the ultimate lie. She claimed they were around the same age. Adrian nearly exploded in shock. They were nearly a millennium apart. This woman was a professional liar. She bragged about her eternal youth next. She boasted of her personal guard, warriors bound to her like knights to a liege. Then, she dropped the hammer. "Our destinies are intertwined," she declared. Adrian froze. This wasn't just some flirtatious line. Elves don't fake fate, it's a cosmic bond. Was this terrifying woman actually being sincere? The room went dead silent. A marriage between a human and an elf was historical madness. Everyone was reeling. Suddenly, Adrian stepped forward, grabbed her arm, and demanded a private talk immediately. He hauled her out, leaving the court in a frenzy of whispers. They finally reached a secluded corner to face off. "What's your real angle?" he hissed. Sigrun just beamed, playing the friendship and diplomacy card perfectly. Adrian wasn't biting. He narrowed his eyes, repeating the question with a deadly, serious edge. "You're an Elder High Elf," he stated, "the clan's most ruthless executioner for centuries. She'd done the Mistletoe clan's dirty work for ages. She was known as their legendary living blade." Adrian asked her sternly, "Are you here to investigate me, or to carry out a death sentence?" Sigrun's eyes widened. How could a mere human know her dark history? She demanded to know his source. Adrian stayed silent. He knew he was still way too weak to survive a direct clash with her. Her fate sense was top tier, meaning she'd peeked into his soul and seen the scars of his past lives. Her murderous aura exploded, suffocating the room. "You know my name, yet you're foolish enough to hide things? I know exactly what you're capable of," Adrian fired back. "That's why I'm choosing my words very carefully." "Drop the act," he warned, telling her not to mess with his destiny. He knew she was just chasing curiosity. If she kept digging, she'd tear his entire future to shreds. Her mere whim could be his absolute ruin. She was a certified lunatic. His only choice? Turn her dangerous curiosity into a genuine obsession for his survival. He needed to stay alive to reach his peak. Sigrun leaned in, her breath cold. "Who are you, really?" "Right now? Just a pathetic prince," he replied. "But there's a ghost in your soul," she countered sharply. "You'll have to wait for that reveal," he teased. Sigrun realized her gut instinct about this mission was right. There was no way the elders would have sent her here on a trash-tier assignment. He was the true target all along. Adrian sighed. Even after all this time, Sigrun was still the same terrifying psycho. One moment she's a terrifying presence. The next, they're strolling back into the hall hand in hand, leaving the entire crowd absolutely speechless. Adrian leads Sigrun straight to the Queen Mother, his expression cold as he prepares to drop a bombshell that no one saw coming. He announces their engagement, sending shockwaves through the room. Internally, Adrian cringes at the thought of having to play the doting lover to this monster. But he's backed into a corner. Defying Sigrun's twisted desires right now isn't an option if he wants to keep his head. It's a desperate gamble to buy a few precious moments. The Queen stands there, absolutely floored by her son's reckless declaration. He smoothly assures her they won't rush into anything, playing off the gravity of the situation to keep the peace. Adrian insists on a period of observation before finalizing the pact, and surprisingly, the Queen finds herself nodding in agreement. It's the perfect cover. Adrian knows his mother will use this window to weigh the political gains of such a terrifying union. While the Queen crunches the numbers, Sigrun is busy prepping her favorite new snack, which just so happens to be Adrian himself. But Adrian has his own agenda. Grind for enough power to break free from this nightmare elf's suffocating grip. Cut to Jillian absolutely losing it in his room, seething about how Adrian is nothing but a talentless loser, riding on his royal bloodline. The prince is spiraling, fueled by pure jealousy over Vale's public endorsement and Adrian's recent string of luck. He can't wrap his head around how Adrian snagged Arwen as a personal bodyguard. For Jillian, it's the ultimate insult. And now, Adrian is claiming the elf? Enough is enough. Jillian decides it's time to humble his brother in a lethal duel. He isn't aiming for the kill that's too messy. Instead, he plans to permanently ruin Adrian's future by shattering his dignity. His goal is simple: emasculate his brother forever. The stage is set, overseen by the legendary Royal Knight Commander, Sturm Hilda. With the king's absolute blessing, Hilda's word is law. Whatever happens in that ring, stays in that ring, no exceptions. As the commander signals them to draw steel, Adrian looks bored out of his mind, completely over Jillian's endless yapping. To him, this is just a meaningless chore. But Jillian? He's practically vibrating with the need to spill blood. He's already bragging about the public humiliation he's about to deliver, even inviting a crowd of snobby nobles to witness the fall. Adrian shuts him down with a simple, "You talk too much," which sends Jillian's blood pressure through the roof. Jillian begins drinking in the surrounding mana, hissing that they'll see how much Adrian can talk once he's face down in the dirt. Visualizing his brother's broken body, Jillian lunges forward like a predator. Adrian considered playing with his food for a bit, but honestly, he's got better things to do. In the blink of an eye, Adrian's blade flashes, cutting Jillian down instantly. It's a total blackout for the second prince. The noble audience and the commander are left frozen, unable to process the speed. Their minds are blown. This isn't the weak, pathetic first prince they used to mock. It's someone entirely different. Shaking off the shock, Commander Hilda wastes no time and raises Adrian's hand, officially declaring him the undisputed victor. With Jillian unconscious, Adrian turns his back on the arena, a look of pure disdain etched on his face. He finds it pathetic that these high-born vultures gathered just to watch a petty sibling squabble. Meanwhile, the nobles are reeling. They can't fathom how their golden boy Jillian just got folded, especially since Adrian has only been training for a few months. The speed of his growth is unnatural. Later, Jillian finally opens his eyes in his chambers, looking like a mummy. Even with his head wrapped in bandages, his ego is still intact. He immediately starts screaming for his gear and a rematch. He's desperate to settle the score, but his servants deliver the bad news. Adrian has already ditched the capital. Panicked, Jillian demands to know where his brother ran off to. The answer? He's heading straight for the frozen north. That's the territory of the savage Balorgs. En route, Vale gives Adrian props, impressed by his sudden mastery over his horse. Adrian takes the compliment and runs with it, making Vale instantly regret feeding the guy's massive ego. Zero humility, as usual. Vale then asks why they're hauling tail right after a massive banquet instead of resting up. A few days of rest would have been normal, but Adrian makes it clear that the capital's fake atmosphere isn't for him. He's done sucking up to trashy nobles. To him, the honest grid of soldiers and knights is where he truly belongs. Vale admits that while warriors aren't as sneaky as lords, they're a tough crowd. He wonders if Adrian is truly ready. Winning over the military isn't a walk in the park, but Adrian is confident that respect will be earned through blood and sweat. Bonding on the front lines is inevitable. Deep down, the ticking clock of his marriage to Sigrun is driving him to the edge. Sigrun's past favorites all ended up in the grave. Adrian knows if he doesn't evolve fast, he's next on the menu. Staying in the cozy capital is a death sentence for his growth. To truly sharpen his blade and unlock his potential, he needs to head to the one place where humanity is pushed to the absolute breaking point. This is the Cradle of Legends, a treacherous stretch of narrow ravines where warriors are forged in blood. Vale explains that his bloodline guards these passes. Meanwhile, Adrian can't help but gripe about the biting chill. Vale offers the warmth of the carriage, but Adrian declines to build his endurance. Unexpectedly, Nicolo tags along. He insists his northern research will benefit Adrian's future, but the prince simply tunes out the old man's chatter. Done with the nonsense, Adrian spots Arwen's intense focus. He checks in, making sure his knight is still holding up. Flashing a confident grin, she promises she is fine. Adrian offers to take point and give her a breather. She refuses the help, claiming knights don't chase comfort. Adrian beams, impressed by her rock-solid discipline. Among a sea of sulking soldiers, Arwen is the only one showing real fire. The rest look completely miserable. Forced north by royal command, the troops are bitter. Adrian knows Karl could whip them into shape instantly. Sadly, the king barred Karl from coming, strictly forbidding the use of knights for the prince's personal errands. His father even mocked his growing influence. Adrian gets it. His reputation as a royal mess-up precedes him. His past antics were legendary, but he feels the king's current coldness is reaching a breaking point. Regardless, he clings to the hope that there's a deeper secret behind the king's cruelty. Suddenly, the vibe shifts. Vale spots a massive storm rolling down the peaks. He shouts for the group to hustle before they are buried alive. In an instant, the light snow transforms into a blinding whiteout, turning their steady march into a brutal struggle. The wind howls so fiercely that shouting to the person right beside you becomes completely impossible. Sensing true peril, Vale channels mana into his voice, thundering an order to ditch the heavy carriages immediately. They need speed to survive. As the men scramble on foot, Adrian lunges toward the carriage to save Adelia. He yanks her to safety just as the royal guards begin to scatter. Adrian dashes into the chaos. He screams at them to drop their shields and heavy gear. Anything slowing them down has to go now. They will recover the supplies later. Adrian points to the largest soldier, commanding him to break the trail. The local northern warriors are stunned. They expected to take charge, but the prince beat them to the punch. They push through the frozen hell until, inevitably, one knight collapses under the sheer weight of the storm. Adrian doesn't blink. He hoists the fallen soldier onto his back and barks at the others to keep moving. Right as the fortress looms through the white, the storm abruptly dies down, vanishing as quickly as it arrived. A clear sky emerges, mocking the life-or-death struggle they just endured. Vale strides toward the gates with iron authority. He officially welcomes Adrian to the Winter Castle, his ancestral domain. This place is more than just a home. Perched on the kingdom's jagged edge, it serves as the ultimate shield against the horrors of the Blade Mountains. For most soldiers, this fortress is a nightmare, the absolute worst post a man can be assigned to. Troops pray they never return, while soft nobles in the capital try to measure the castle's political worth. For the locals, though, this frozen rock is their pride. Suddenly, the massive iron gates creak open, revealing Vale's son. Vincent steps forward to relinquish command to his father before heading back to lead his elite ranger unit. Vale praises his son's dedication, though the young man is simply relieved to see his father alive and well. Adrian chimes in, acting shocked that his uncle actually has an heir. Vale just scoffs at the prince's cheekiness. Adrian doubles down, jokingly pointing out how much they look alike, especially that stubborn, grumpy scowl. Vincent tolerates the teasing before stiffly offering a formal greeting to the kingdom's first prince. Adrian plays it cool, but Vincent is low-key fuming. He can't stand a notorious playboy tainting his sacred castle. He believes Adrian doesn't belong here. A nearby knight steps up to give the prince a grand tour. Vincent is losing it inside, unable to fathom why his legendary father would invite such trash to their home. He confronts Vale directly, but his father confirms the rumors. The decision has already been made. Vale is now Adrian's official guardian. As Vincent protests the prince's stay, he reminds his father of Adrian's exile. This is the man the king personally threw away. But Vale remains unshaken by his son's logical arguments. He insists that people can evolve. He leaves Vincent with one task: watch Adrian without any petty bias. Keep an open mind. Later, the leadership assembles to discuss the state of the northern defense. Vincent reports that while his father was away, they have been systematically wiping out nearby monster dens. Yet, several zones remain completely untouched. He notes that since his father is currently present, they need to accelerate their timeline. Continuing the briefing, he soon highlights that their sole obstacle is a pack of orcs. Roughly 20 of these beasts have entrenched themselves at the mountain pass. He argues that suppressing them will be grueling, using only standard ranger archery. Vincent begins hand-picking elite knights from the castle garrison, but Adrian suddenly interjects, informing Vincent that he'll handle the orc threat personally. Vincent recoils, warning that these Blade Mountain monsters are built different. Any failure could jeopardize the entire ranger operation. Adrian brushes him off and appeals to his uncle, shamelessly playing the favorite nephew card. Vale questions Vincent about the enemy's true scale and power level. Vincent confirms a head count of 20, though the presence of lethal orc warriors or shamans remains a wild card. They can't rule out the worst. Vale looks at Adrian, gauging his confidence. Vincent panics, desperately shouting his father's name to stop the madness. He screams that this pass is a vital artery for the Rangers. If a mess is made, and it turns into a chaotic war zone, future missions will immediately become a total nightmare. Plus, if Adrian dies, the family is finished. Secretly, Adrian is low-key impressed that Vale raised such a sharp-witted son. Ignoring the protest, Vale asks Adrian for his demands. Adrian requests 3 guides and a complete gear overhaul for his guards. Vale agrees instantly, leaving Vincent absolutely floored by the decision. Later, Adrian gathers his royal guards, announcing their new mission. The captain is stunned, demanding to know the meaning of this. Adrian drops the bomb. They're on an orc-slaying mission. He cites 20 targets, with possible elite warriors or shamans in the mix. The captain scoffs, questioning why they're doing the 3rd Legion's dirty work as simple escorts. Adrian flips the script, reminding him that where the master goes, the guards must follow. Walking off, he commands the men to gear up and wait for the 3rd Legion. Adrian might despise these guys, but he'll squeeze every bit of use out of these gifts from his father. Despite their pathetic performance in the snow, their raw stats are actually cracked, being hand-picked royal elites. Suddenly, he spots a redhead with a disguise trait, making him suspicious of the guy's true agenda. At departure, Adrian is stunned to find Vincent acting as guide. Vincent declares that the stakes are too high to leave things to chance. Adrian promises victory, but Vincent isn't buying it. Adrian attempts to trigger his judgment authority, but it flops, making him suspect Vincent is already a triple-chain knight. He then scans the Rangers, discovering only one is legit. The others are high-tier knights in disguise. It's a failsafe. They're ready to intervene if Adrian's team starts throwing the game. Adrian decides to let it slide, for now. Before moving out, he benches Adelia, fearing her volatile trait might awaken and ruin everything. Trekking through the frozen woods, Vincent warns the squad to manage their stamina levels carefully. One slip in energy, and their limbs will freeze up, making combat a death sentence. As the lecture continues, Adrian low-key wants to disappear because this nagging is more annoying than his dad's. Suddenly, a rabbit dashes by as a scout pulls out a telescope to survey the path ahead. He reports an orc squad nearby and looks to Adrian for the call. Adrian commands his men to nock their arrows, while the rest of the unit readies for impact. Adrian steps out, and the instant an orc locks eyes with him, the beast goes berserk. Adrian flashes a wicked grin. He's missed the thrill of the hunt. The lead orc tries to act tough, posturing in front of its pack, but Adrian coldly gives the order to fire. A hail of arrows shreds the monster instantly. Adrian draws his blade as the battlefield prepares to explode into pure carnage. Adrian radiates pure lethality, lunging toward the orc with a manic grin. One swift, devastating slash is all it takes to end the beast. As orc blood paints the snow crimson, Adrian finally awakens to the primal hunger he's craved for ages. He glares at the remaining horde, eyes cold. The iron-scented air of the massacre ignites his soul. Seeing his descent into madness, Arwen trembles with paralyzing fear for his life. Adrian bellows for her to stay back, warning that she'll be consumed by the chaotic inferno he's about to unleash upon the orc horde. Our story traces back 400 years, to an era where orcs weren't monsters, but the proud, sovereign masters of this vast continent. This isn't some grand myth or heroic legend, but the dark record of a man history chose to forget. This is the ballad of a broken soul who harbored a burning hatred for orcs. A grieving father, he battled relentlessly until his very last drop of strength vanished. Piling up emerald corpses high enough to pierce the heavens, these are the fading echoes of a legendary Avenger's tragic tale. As he chants these lines, the system triggers the hymn of vengeance, causing a suffocating crimson aura to explode from his frame. Prior to his journey north, the disguised redhead struck a deal with a high-ranking royal count during a secret meeting. Bought with gold to spy on the prince, they assumed Adrian would just cower behind castle walls, while others did the heavy lifting. They expected him to steal the glory, but witnessing Adrian's raw savagery on the front lines has left the spy absolutely paralyzed with terror. Shaking like a leaf, the man can barely stay upright, let alone maintain a steady grip on his trembling blade. Just as he tries to snap out of it, an orc shatters his remaining courage by effortlessly snatching his spear mid-air. Thinking his life is over, Arwen suddenly blurs into motion, severing the beast's limb before claiming its head in one clean, lethal strike. He collapses in a panic as the monster's severed arm thuds against his chest. Amidst the chaos, Arwen stares him down coldly. She barks a sharp reminder that losing one's steel on the battlefield is a death sentence, leaving the man drowning in shame. He nods frantically while Arwen assumes control of the royal guards, rallying them to face the incoming green tide head-on. Beneath her calm exterior, Arwen realizes they are hopelessly outnumbered, making survival against such overwhelming odds seem like a distant dream. A strange chill suddenly washes over her from afar. Without warning, the lead orc threatening their line is instantly obliterated. Adrian's flawless strike paints the snow red. He stands there radiating a bone-chilling pressure that reeks of pure, unadulterated bloodlust. Arwen shouts his name, but he is already a blur plunging into the enemy ranks like a demon possessed. Memories of the ancient Avenger flood back, a man who slaughtered thousands, yet never felt his hunger for revenge satisfied. Driven by an insatiable thirst for vengeance, he roamed the desolate orc territories, leaving a trail of mangled bodies in his wake. When his mana reserves finally hit zero, his madness only intensified. He survived by consuming the foul blood and flesh of his fallen enemies. His body withered with every agonizing step, but Gruhorn, his cursed demonic blade, refused to let his soul pass on. The sword drained his very life essence to grant one final wish, a vendetta born from the loss of his wife and child. Seeking justice for his butchered family, he finally stood face to face with his ultimate nemesis, the dreaded Orc King. By then, the Avenger was merely a walking corpse, a hollow shell of the mighty warrior he once used to be. Despite his failing strength, he lunged at the colossal tyrant with every remaining scrap of his will. The king simply caught him midair, crushing the life out of him with massive iron-like hands. No savior appeared. Defiant until the end, he stared into the king's eyes, his tragic tale witnessed only by the silent, blood-stained steel of Gruhorn. Fast forward to the present, Adrian stands amidst a sea of monsters, the heavy weight of that ancient history resting on his shoulders. He is the sole keeper of the Avenger's agony. Stopping to catch his breath, he surveys the ongoing carnage around him. While his knights struggle desperately to hold the line, a sudden chilling realization strikes his mind. The hymn of vengeance remains unfinished. In an instant, his heart ignites with a renewed, violent bloodlust. It falls on him to write the final verse. He charges his blade, carving through orcish hides as if they were nothing more than soft butter. He has become a true apex predator, eyes glowing crimson as the metallic stench of fresh blood saturates the frozen air. Ping, the system chimes, announcing that a brand new verse has been etched into the hymn of vengeance. Adrian has constructed a literal mountain of the dead, with a dark river of gore pooling at its base. The skill evolves, transforming the song of revenge into the hymn of requiems. The final orc falls silent forever. Vincent approaches the enemy colors, snapping their banner in half to signal the total annihilation of the orc horde. Hoisting his crimson flag high, he roars victory, a cry that is immediately echoed by the thunderous cheers of his knights. Adrian studies Vincent, the successor to a noble house that has lived and breathed warfare for generations. By some twist of fate, he shares the name of that ancient warrior who sacrificed everything to wipe the orcs from existence. That man vowed to return with his dying breath. Now Adrian can't help but wonder if that legend has been reborn. Is Vincent the reincarnation? The knight approaches and Adrian calmly inquires what he needs. Vincent offers him the banner, declaring it belongs to the warrior who displayed the most peerless courage today. It is a sacred tradition of the Third Legion, a trophy of victory that carries more weight than any gold. This honor is priceless. Without hesitation, Vincent makes it clear this banner and the glory it represents belongs solely to Adrian. Suddenly, Arwen calls out to him, her hand pressed tightly against her racing heart. As she honors Adrian, the other knights suddenly drop to their knees, paying homage to his absolute bravery. Adrian is stunned by the gesture, just as he prepares to officially declare their massive victory. Vincent nudges him to shout it louder so the whole world hears. Adrian sucks in a deep breath, wearing a cocky smirk as he roars out their triumph. Behind him, the knights erupt in a thunderous cheer. Drunk on the high of winning, Adrian starts flexing, shamelessly flaunting the captured banner as his own trophy. He's mid-flex when Vincent shuts him down, mentioning his own 16 banners, but Adrian couldn't care less. This specific prize is his. Vincent just scoffs, instantly reminded why he found this brat so annoying. Later, a somber funeral fire is lit, the smoke carrying the souls of the fallen into the afterlife. Vincent notes that the death toll was surprisingly low for a clash against an elite orc squad. Adrian isn't comforted, and Arwen sighs at the tragedy. That's when Vincent chimes in with a cold truth. Victory is the ultimate tribute. Nothing soothes a warrior's ghost better than the fresh blood of their enemies. Adrian locks eyes with Vincent, struck by how much he resembles a legendary figure from his past. From the name to the vibe, is he the Avenger reborn? Then Adrian spots something off the troop count. He questions if this massive army really followed them from the start. Vincent avoids eye contact, looking away. He spins a weak lie about a passing ranger unit joining them. Adrian sees right through the cap. He mocks how convenient that coincidence was. Deep down, he knows Vincent didn't trust him for a second, which is why he hid the rangers in the shadows. Vincent then wonders why orcs were this deep inland. It's bizarre that they reached the hill undetected. How did an entire combat unit slip past their scouts? He orders a swift return to the fortress. Upon arrival, Lord Vale himself is there to greet them. Before the Lord can even finish his praise, Adrian hoists his banner high, bragging to the entire castle. The garrison is stunned. Taking a trophy on a first deployment is unheard of. But the royal guards, they're already rolling their eyes. They've heard this exact boast 11 times in the last hour. Vincent ignores the clowning, pulling his father away to report the chilling anomalies found in the mountains. He reveals that the orcs were already positioned, practically breathing down the scouts' necks from the start. Vale suspects a massive hunt or a disturbance deep in the range. Either way, it's a bad omen. Despite wanting his son to recover, the situation is too dire. He commands Vincent to follow him immediately. Duty calls. As he leaves, Vincent gives Adrian a rare nod of respect, acknowledging his hard work. Suddenly, Adelia sprints toward her master, nearly crying with relief that Adrian made it back safely. She starts pouring out her heart, but Adrian interrupts her by shoving the captured banner in her face. Under the cover of night, Vincent enters Adrian's quarters. A new ranger squad is mobilizing for a sweep. They need to figure out what's lurking in those peaks, but the risks are completely off the charts. Only the most seasoned elites are being picked. Basically, Adrian is being left off the roster this time. To Vincent's shock, Adrian couldn't care less about the mission. He then asks why Vincent even bothered coming. Why spill the details? Vincent admits it was Lord Vale's direct order to keep him in the loop. Adrian smirks, realizing Vale is playing matchmaker for their friendship. He doesn't mind the gesture, though. He dismisses Vincent, his gaze drifting back to the banner, still sitting proudly on his desk. He can't stop staring. Reflecting on the chaos, he realizes he was lost in the absolute trance of battle. For the first time, he chanted an ancient martial hymn flawlessly, every verse resonating with his soul. He knows this is just the beginning. From now on, the battlefield will be his true playground. The old hymns aren't enough. He's going to dismantle them and rebuild them into something uniquely his own. Just like he forged the hymn of requiems from vengeance. Suddenly, a bizarre bird lands on his windowsill. One look tells him this isn't nature's creation. The creature radiates an eerie, unnatural energy. He already knows the sender, Sigrun. Through the bird, her voice echoes with a chilling, mysterious familiarity. She asks if he enjoyed her little gift. In a flash, a horrifying realization hits Adrian's mind. Sigrun was the puppet master behind the orc ambush. She whispers that he's the only thing she cares about. Adrian needs to test his steel against worthy foes. Sigrun eagerly offers a gift she hopes he won't refuse. But Adrian's blood boils. She just sacrificed dozens of rangers, yet here she is shamelessly pitching this gift. Elves are nothing but twisted spectators. To them, the orc slaughter Adrian just survived was peak entertainment for Sigrun. She intentionally unleashed those orc monsters. Now Sigrun confesses that she's absolutely obsessed with the carnage. The hymn of hatred Adrian rained down on the orcs left her breathless. In her warped mind, this was a favor. Adrian's done with the yapping. Get to the point, he growls. Sigrun pouts, calling him cold-hearted as usual. She'll wait forever for him to cave, though. Suddenly, her messenger bird flutters down, perching right on Adrian's arm. Deep in those peaks lies your missing piece, Sigrun whispers. She's talking about an ancient entity buried in the snow. It sleeps within the mountains waiting. Transform its essence into your lyrics and your next hymn will be legendary. Adrian's interest peaks instantly, but before he can ask more, Sigrun's voice turns chillingly calm. Time's up. The bird has served its purpose. Just as the words leave her lips, a sickening sound fills the air. Boom, the bird detonates, painting Adrian's face in a gruesome spray of blood and feathers. Pure, unadulterated horror. She did it just to mess with him. Adrian wipes the gore away, finally realizing her true twisted endgame. She wants a new martial hymn. See, elves are great at singing, but they can't create a soul-shaking masterpiece from scratch. They just hijack other people's vibes, weaving them into their own sword dances to fuel their magic. Sigrun's playing the long game. She's using Adrian like a master chef to cook up a lethal new melody. Adrian decides to bite just this once. Later, he seeks out Vincent to dig for more intel on those peaks. Vincent's face pales. We stay on the outskirts, he warns. Going deep into those mountains is a death sentence. No one who ventures into the inner frost ever returns alive. The realization hits Adrian like a physical blow. Not a single soul Adrian presses. Vincent nods grimly. In all of history, the mountains have claimed everyone. Their job is to hold the line against monsters, not play explorer. But Adrian's mind is already racing. The inner mountains are a total blank map. Usually legends say ancient knights already picked the world clean. Greedy warriors once scoured every corner of the earth to reach god-tier status, leaving nothing behind. Yet somehow this forbidden zone survived. A slow, dangerous smirk spreads across Adrian's face. Balorhard was the perfect choice after all. Vincent spots that look and warns him to stay far away from those peaks. Not today, Adrian promises. But later, as he polishes his blade, his thoughts are miles high in the snow. What's hiding up there? The urge to sprint toward the danger is nearly overwhelming, but he knows he isn't ready. He needs more XP, more blood, and more victories first. Luckily, Winter Castle is the ultimate grinding spot. Violence is a daily routine here. Suddenly, a piercing alarm shatters the quiet. Another attack is imminent. To the walls, the commander roars. Adrian sprints to the battlements, finding Vale already staring into the abyss. Look, Vale points. 3 rangers are hauling it across the frozen tundra, terror etched onto their faces. What could possibly terrify hardened rangers like that? The guards scream for them to move faster as the shadows shift. Then they see them orcs mounted on massive wolves. The archers can only watch their bows useless at this distance. The rangers are inches from safety, but Adrian narrows his eyes. Something about this chase feels wrong. They're playing with them, Vale spits. Those wolf riders could have closed the gap minutes ago if they wanted. Realizing the end is near, the ranger captain halts. He turns back to face the monsters alone, buying his men seconds. His courage is rewarded with a gruesome end. A wolf lunges, tearing him limb from limb in a spray of crimson. The rest of his squad is swarmed and taken alive. Vincent goes for his sword, ready to dive into the fray. Adrian's hand snaps onto Vincent's shoulder. Wait, this isn't a massacre, it's an invitation. These orcs want a duel. Their leader slams a terrifying banner into the dirt, signaling his intent. A bleached skull stares back at them. Seeing that sigil, the puzzle pieces in Adrian's mind finally lock together. The secret of the inner mountains is revealed. The Orc King is back. The Orc commander bellows a challenge. He's here to reclaim his legion's honor for his great sovereign. You seriously think they're betting those hostages on a duel? Vale asks, his voice trembling with doubt. Adrian just nods. But looking at Vale and Vincent's faces, it's clear they think he's completely lost it. Adrian decides to show his hand. He marches forward and barks an acceptance to the orc captain in the beast's own guttural ancient tongue. He demands the captain have everyone clear the field by 200 paces and ditch their wolf mounts immediately. The orc captain freezes, stunned by the human's perfect fluency. He growls, demanding how a mere man mastered the sacred speech of his tribe. He sneers, asking if Adrian carries orc blood, but Adrian shuts him down with a cold stare, assuring him his veins are purely human. Adrian's voice thunders as he demands a straight answer on the terms. Intimidated by the pressure, the captain yields and orders his men to comply. However, he warns that if the humans dare tarnish the honor of this duel, he'll paint the dirt with their entrails. With the negotiations locked in, Adrian turns back to Vincent and Vale with a cocky smirk, asking if they're finally convinced. Vale just scoffs, looking at him with total disdain and claiming Adrian is just spouting absolute delusional nonsense. The words barely leave his mouth when the orc vanguard actually begins to retreat, following Adrian's commands to the letter. Only 5 orc champions remain on the field. Vale is left speechless, his brain struggling to process the impossible scene. He admits that in dozens of winters guarding this fortress, he has never once seen an orc willingly back down from a fight. Keep your jaw off the floor, Adrian quips, telling Vale to save his shock because the orcs have a very specific condition. They want 5 combatants, but they'll only fight the warriors who were present during their last bloody encounter. High in the mountains, Vale is rocked to hear they're specifically hunting the survivors from the mountain unit skirmish. Back at the mountain foothills, Vale calls for his son, and instantly veterans from the previous battle step forward to volunteer. But Adrian tells them to chill because 2 of the 5 spots are already locked in. The Rangers are completely blindsided. They warn him it's a suicide mission, but Adrian shuts them down, reminding them he's the only bridge between them and the orcs. The Rangers beg for at least one opening, but Adrian refuses. He won't deny Arwen the chance to unleash her battle lust. She's already vibrating with intensity. Adrian locks eyes with her, asking if she's truly ready to step into the fire. She bows low with steel in her gaze. Meanwhile, a baffled Vale demands to know where Adrian learned to speak beast. It's the first time he's realized these monsters can even communicate. Adrian just shrugs, spinning a quick lie about hitting the books. Just a lot of studying Adrian deadpans. Seeing Vale's gears turning, he warns him not to think diplomacy could have solved their past wars. This is a freak occurrence. Normally, only the highest-ranking orc nobles can wield the ancient tongue used by this captain. Only those who serve the orc king directly are graced with that language, making this captain a true elite. The captain's roar echoes across the field, demanding if Adrian is coming. Adrian's eyes narrow as he confirms he's ready. Adrian doesn't believe in luck. Between the elf ambassador's arrival and the orc king's return, the world is shifting into chaos. For the first time in 400 years, the orc king has revealed himself. Something massive is brewing in the north. The heavy gates groan open as the 5 human champions march out. Adrian's mind races with questions, but he pushes them aside. Now isn't the time for theories or politics. It's strictly time for blood and steel. As Adrian faces off with his target, the orc towers over him, asking if this puny human is really his opponent. Adrian smirks, asking if he's disappointed. Surprisingly, the beast shakes his head in respect. He senses Adrian's overwhelming spirit. To the orc, this human isn't just prey, he's a feast worthy of a warrior's blade. Your flesh will be a fine delicacy, the orc growls. Adrian just bows his head, gripping his sword as the air grows heavy. It's almost poetic. The first person to acknowledge his true strength without a drop of hate is a literal monster. Vincent screams for Adrian to fall back, terrified that the orc captain is way out of the kids' league. He's mid-sentence when an orc's blade whistles past his throat, forcing him to leap back in a desperate scramble. The rest of the orc pack looms over the humans like shadows, ready to tear into their long-awaited prey. Forget knightly honor, Adrian warns his crew. These guys don't take turns, just focus on staying alive. Total mayhem erupts instantly as both sides collide in a brutal frenzy of steel and bone. Adrian lunges for the captain's throat with an overhead strike, but the beast meets him with the cold iron of a massive axe. He repels Adrian with ease, mocking him for being far weaker than his impressive aura suggested. Adrian's gaze turns icy as he decides to stop playing nice. He's about to show this beast what true terror feels like. His aura suddenly explodes, surging through the roof and threatening to swallow the entire battlefield in shadow. It's fueled by the cold fury of 100 fallen rangers and the lingering, vengeful shadows of the Avenger. A predatory grin spreads across Adrian's face as he goes full beast mode, declaring the real hunt has finally begun. Reaching Winter Castle was a massive W. With his mana finally topped off, Adrian gives the noble orc a chilling thanks for the wait. He instantly triggers the Hymn of Requiem, radiating a terrifying nightmare aura that leaves the orcs paralyzed with pure